All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our Watsonville City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 24th, and we're about to begin our first meeting back from recess to finish off the year. With that saying, if we can take roll call.
Estrada,
Present.
Garcia,
Here.
Gonzalez, Hurst,
Present.
Montesino. Not here yet. Parker
Here.
and Dutra.
Present. All right. Are there any motions to excuse any council members? If any, this is the moment to make them. Councilmember Hurst.
Yes, I would excuse Councilmember Aurelio Gonzalez, please.
Okay, there's a motion to excuse Councilmember Aurelio Gonzalez. Can I hear a second? Mayor Pro Tem Parker, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, oppose? This passes 5-1 absent, and Aurelio is not here. Or actually 2 absents, I would imagine. All right, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, everybody. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we are virtual because of the rise of the Delta variant. We felt that staying virtual for meeting by meeting, deciding meeting by meeting was our best option to move forward. So this meeting, we have decided to remain virtual. Every meeting forward will, until October when we're mandated to come back, we'll be deciding how the other 2 meetings will be run. Okay, with that said, let's see here. We'll move on to presentations, unless there's any written reports by council members, which I don't see any. And we'll move on to presentations and oral communications. This is time set aside for members of the general public to address the council on items not on the city council agenda for this evening, and which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of city council. No action or discussion shall be taken on any item presented, except that any council member may respond to statements made or questions asked, or may ask questions for clarification. All matters of an administrative nature will be referred to staff. All matters relating to council will be noted in the minutes and may be scheduled for discussion at a future meeting or referred to staff for clarification report. All speakers are asked to announce their name, the district they live in, and this is in order for us to keep accurate records for our minutes. With that said, we will start with oral communications from the public. 2 minutes for items not on this evening's agenda.
Judy, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Judy Gittleson, and I'm a Watsonville resident, and I'm an artist, and I'm a painter, and I painted the strawberry that was selected for this year's Strawberry Festival and poster and t-shirt. And I just rented a storefront in downtown Watsonville at 430 Main Street. And I'm here today to ask you and the city of Watsonville to approve the special use permit I have filed to allow an art studio and an art gallery at 430 Main Street. I hope to contribute positively to Watsonville. I'm really appreciative of all the support I've received. I'm thrilled to be here, and you're all welcome and invited to come visit when I'm able to open. And if you have any questions or comments please feel free to contact me. My website is judyg.com, and my phone number and email are listed there. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. And I look forward to being part of Watsonville.
Good. Thank you for coming to our meeting, Judy. I believe this is a planning commission decision. Correct me if I'm wrong, city manager. So Judy, this will be going to another meeting, but we do appreciate you coming and being a part of our community.
Thank you.
All right, next caller.
Good evening, City Council, Mr. Mayor, and all the appointed and elected officials. Steve Trio, Cabrillo Community College Board of Trustees, District 7 in Area 7. And first of all, I want to address the fact that I am delighted that the George Washington bust is now headed for a permanent home in the public library, which is where it belonged in the first place. I am hopeful that people will, when they go up to admire the bust, check out a book about all the different facets of who George Washington was and find out the real history, not just the glorified, sanctified, and cleansed history that we may have learned in elementary school. Very unfortunate. Also, I do want to point out that yes, the Delta virus is scary, and my most concern for that is for the children. As soon as we get the child vaccine for those under 12, I'm hopeful the city will encourage the public schools, Pajaro Valley Unified School District, to make sure that there are as many sign-ups as possible to get as many children in our community vaccinated as soon as possible. Again, this is the only way we will defeat the Delta virus, because it is evil and it will take children's lives. We must stop it. And also, I wish to report to the City Council that I am very pleased with the fact that we have 3 new police officers, and I greeted them warmly in the Pajaronian. And I am certainly hopeful that they will stay put. But I got to tell you guys, we're losing them to other communities that pay more. We need to raise our salaries. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Have a good evening. Next caller, please.
Celeste, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Celeste Gutierrez. I would like to start this comment by sharing that canceling anyone does more harm than good. When someone causes harm, ostracizing that person will not bring about healing or unity, but rather more harm and divisiveness. I disagree with many council members and community members, yet I am willing to meet with them individually so we may see where we have commonalities and go from there. I would also like to add that I have continued to ask questions about the ad hoc committee that have gone unanswered. Decisions were made without consulting our community or communicating with the entire committee, and that to me is undemocratic. Last month, Tamara Vides took it upon herself to go to every single ad hoc member's house, unmasked, unannounced, to drop off a report that up until that day, all communication had been digital or virtual. All of this was done while we were in the middle of a global pandemic. Even this meeting right now is being held virtually. I was told we would need said report during our in-person meeting this past Saturday. I sat next to the mayor this Saturday, and never once did I see him take out the 200+ printed report. Everything every single person does matters, especially when it comes to the environment. We have one home, one planet. There aren't infinite resources available to us. Tamara's actions were wasteful, selfish, and were once again performative, wanting to look as if she was doing something, but really it was all for show. We had a meeting out in Corralitos, not open to the public, once again contributing to the degradation of trust into local government as the city attempts to hide from its residents. Is it perhaps that the city doesn't want systems change? I make these comments as I think it's important to have these conversations publicly, to heal publicly, to show that we are united as we all share 99.9% of the same genetic makeup. I have reached out and met with all of the council members. Still, Jimmy and Paco refuse to meet with me. How can you lead if you aren't willing to meet with city residents? How can you lead when you are too fearful? Being brave doesn't mean doing something and pretending that you aren't afraid. Being brave means that you're afraid and doing it anyways. Enter into all spaces with all of me, and I have learned that others, members of the public council, enter spaces thinking, how will this get me more clout? How will this make me more popular? What's the cool thing this week? Rather than speaking from your heart and doing what's right, because doing what's right isn't always what's popular. Thank you.
Next caller.
Ellie, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for making these meetings virtual with the Delta variant and the expected surge in September. It is important that we keep our community safe in whatever way we can by wearing masks indoors, even when vaccinated, and most importantly, getting vaccinated. I have seen a lot of our recreational activities opening back up again, which is great as long as we're keeping them safe, of course. What I've seen is the prices, and it's just outrageous to see that we're charging a family over $200 per child to receive services in our community. We're constantly hearing from Cindy that we are a very poor community, and that's why we don't have any money. But how is this helping that? How are we helping our community? How is this a win? How is this benefiting us that we have to pay so much money for our kids to have an after school program at the youth center? I had that free as a kid. My siblings and I went there every day. If we went to the youth center today, that would cost my parents over $800 a month, and we would simply not go. I don't know where I would be without the youth center. So I would not categorize this as a win. I would like you to look at the budget and reallocate enough money to Parks and Rec so that we can cover every child in Watsonville to receive these programs for free, like we did as children. And also try to remember that when you say you support gentrification, que porque son developers y no sé qué, this is what you're supporting. This isn't equity. This isn't community support. This is displacement. So I urge you to invest in us instead. What Steve Trujillo said, I disagree with. Cops in Watsonville make nearly twice as much as the medium income. So they do not need more money, and we do not need more cops. We need more of these free services that keep our kids engaged, that keep our kids busy, for our people that need it the most, los que no tienen el dinero. Like, it's like, no tienen nada que hacer nuestros kids, no les podemos dar nada y ahora ni a la pinche youth center pueden ir porque cuesta an arm and a leg. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hold on, I lost my place. David Wang, please go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hey, my name is David Wayne. I'm a representative for Pacific Sunshine Development in Watsonville. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Dutra and all the city councilmen and building department staff and local neighborhood supporters for our
Hi,
project.
David. I think you're on the, do we have this on the agenda this evening? So I think there's a place later on you're gonna be able to speak about this.
Yes, but I think there are some agreements that the MOU and the set-aside agreement are not on the agenda. So
Yeah.
I'd like to.
Oh, you want to talk
up.
about the MOU then? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, okay, thanks. Thanks,
Uh-huh.
Mayor Dutra, yeah. So yeah, let me continue. Yeah, let me thanks the local neighborhood supporter for our project. We all have the same goal to help the local community. We try to provide more housing, including affordable housing. And we have moved forward actually expeditiously, I mean, on all fronts regarding the construction related issue. Especially, we were much ahead of schedule for fire retention pond and public sidewalk. We have made a tremendous effort with good record of bad nuisance to move forward the project. While we are hoping to quickly resolve these issues, the other component to abate the nuisance are the MOU, reimbursement, and on-site improvement agreement. And they seem to be no logical nor legally supportable the nexus between the agreements for the nuisance item. Here are the status for agreement documents. For MOU and reimbursement agreements, Pacific Sunshine Development has signed and submitted to the city around August 7th. But city staff refused to submit them to the city council to review, unless the on-site agreement and the first amendment to the set-aside agreement also were signed and submitted. And the additional security deposit of $747,000 was provided approximately like 2 weeks before the meeting. So we have made a minor revision and signed it yesterday and tendered an agreement to David Kenya, who is supervising the public and on-site improvement, on which we have continued to work. And we also have to secure the agreement with the East West Bank to accept and re-accept the funds. Therefore, consistent with the recommendation and request we made in our joint presentation with our general contractor by our letter to Mayor Dutra and the city councilman dated August 21st. So we sincerely ask the city to schedule to review the MOU funding agreement and SIA and the first amendment for consideration and approval on the next council meeting on September 14th and defer the action on the nuisance issues to the September 28th meeting. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Nancy, go ahead, please.
Hello, good evening, council and public. This is Nancy Falstick. I'm the director of Regeneración, Pajaro Valley Climate Action. And I just wanted to mention two things. At Regeneración, we have drafted a blueprint for an equitable climate resilience. It's the beginning of our vision for what we would like to see going forward. And we want to encourage everyone to read it. It's on our website and in our newsletter. And would love to see everybody be integrating these ideas into their workplace and looking at decisions from the viewpoint of how do we build resilience in a rapidly changing climate. So the second thing that I wanted to mention is this is the first meeting since the international body, the IPCC, has come out with their 6th assessment, and they are calling it a code red for humanity. You don't even need to read the whole thing. What people need to understand is that we need immediate, rapid, and large-scale reductions in greenhouse gases. Without that, and that means, literally in the next few years, we will not be able to limit warming to 1.5 degrees or even 2 degrees Celsius. And I think you're all seeing the reports just in the United States this summer, 17 inches of rain in Tennessee, 7 inches of rain in New York in one day. And this is only at 1.1 degrees of warming. So I just want to urge everyone, we have to change our lifestyles today, and we need to begin to legislate sweeping changes tomorrow. Every person here listening, what will it take for you to act like we actually are in an emergency? This is an emergency, and this is threatening our lives, even more so our children's lives. So thank you. I know people are dedicated to net zero by 2030, but this is one more wake-up call that we really need to act today. Thank you.
Judy, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Judy Stabile, and I'm an artist and a creative placemaker. And I'm speaking to you today to ask you to help revision the downtown area as a creative place to show and sell artwork. When you're thinking about the downtown specific plan and upcoming zoning, we would like for you to think about galleries as viable retail concerns. The downtown specific plan and EIR that was done in July of 2020 states that downtown retail now and in the future would benefit from increased coordination among businesses to improve marketing and branding and to leverage local cultural assets. We'd like for you to view gallery spaces as cultural assets. And I am in support of Judy Gittleson and her desire to start a gallery on Main Street, and hope that the zoning and planning department will be in support of her bid to have gallery space downtown. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy. All right.
Mayor, I don't see anyone else with their hands up.
Great, thank you. With that, then
Hold on, there's one. Milpa, go ahead.
Yeah, buenas tardes, y'all. Sorry, I just pulled up, and I'm glad I just made the cut for this comment right here. But first and foremost, I hope y'all had a good break. We're able to reflect on the ongoings that were happening, in the first half of the year. But I just want to say, moving forward, we've seen the advocacy of community members, come forth, requesting, asking, to have an equitable budget being distributed amongst the people, right? For the people. I mean, it's our taxpayer dollars, right? And, there's been, atrocities happening in our community, lately. It's like, I heard someone say something about, we need to pay the cops more and all this and that. But, while if you consider that, it's like, are you going to be paying, the community more also? Are you going to be doubling up the services that the community actually needs? It's like, I'm okay if you want, if this city council wants to continue that intimate relationship with the police department, as it is, you are their employer, right? think about what you can do for the community. Those 84% of Watsonville is brown. I'm not sure how many of those work in the fields, but I bet you it's a high percentage, right? The even the lineage that comes here, the intergenerational, homes that are here, we just, there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of bridge building to be done with the city council. But the city council needs to really step up also and engage with community, right? And accept the criticisms, accept the highlights, right? The uplifting, all that is part of advocacy, is part of the whole show, right? But we need to work together to, just to build a better and healthier Watsonville. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
I don't see anyone.
All right, we'll come back to the city council. Councilmember Garcia.
Good afternoon, everybody. I really enjoyed the break from the city council meetings, but there was no break from the community. The phone calls, emails, and texts continued. One of the activities in which I participated was at the senior center. When I was mayor, I had lunch with the seniors in November, December, and January. However, I didn't go in February because I went to New Orleans for Mardi Gras. And while I was there, I bought them a souvenir of a beaded bracelet and, of course, the carnival parade beaded necklaces. Because of the pandemic, I was unable to distribute the souvenirs until last month. What was interesting was that the Mexican male seniors asked for red, white, and blue beaded necklaces because they symbolize the United States flag, and they were very, very proud to be in the United States. A couple of weeks ago, my son and granddaughter came to visit me after not seeing them for 20 months. We were at the beach and my son showed me his LA County Library application named Libby, which allows you to check out a book to read online. I contacted our director, Alicia, and I found out we have that same application, Libby. You can go to the library website and you will need your library card number and your PIN number, which is the last 4 numbers of your phone number. And you can check out any book to read online anywhere you want to read it. So do that and enjoy. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Montesino.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for being here, and it was a nice little break, but like Councilmember Garcia said, there's no break from community, which is in some cases it's really nice just to see people out in parks and see some improvements that we have in our community. I see lots of kids and families over at Ramsey Park, practicing and playing games. So that's a very good thing. But we also got to be very vigilant, and now with the Delta variant, we got to take care of ourselves. So hopefully we get approved for that vaccine for young kids soon, so we can get everyone vaccinated. That'll be all my remarks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hurst.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back from our so-called recess. It was Music in the Plaza, the Saco Slavic American Cultural Organization fundraiser, Thriving Immigrant Community Forum, Rail Trail Dedication, Cancer Society Spring Lamb Barbecue Fundraiser, Sons and Daughter of Italy event, the PV Chamber Awards, the Community Bridges Annual Dinner, the Satellite Healthcare Open House right there on Hanger Way in District 3. And gosh, there's a whole bunch of other great stuff that happened. The Fire Youth Academy, Strawberry Fest, hey, that was a good one. Airport Master Plan meeting, never a dull moment there. A Rotary fundraiser and a Restore grand opening. So we had plenty to do. But there was a sad event I wanted to comment on. My dear neighbor, Hortensia Andrade, a longtime resident of Watsonville and 46-year veteran of marriage with her wonderful husband, Anastasio. She passed away on August 9th, and she was such a lovely lady, and I think a lot of people in the community know her well. They certainly know Anastasio well as well. And it leaves a hole in our heart that she has passed on. And so I just want to say what a great leader she was, a parent leader. She and I and my wife Wendy sat on the steps of Minty White Elementary School waiting for our kids to get out of school, and they went on to EA Hall and Rolling Hills together and Watsonville High, and what a great lady, and certainly sorry to see Hortensia Andrade pass from the community. A great leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Estrada.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. I just wanted a few things that I wanted to share. Congratulations to PVUSD that won the softball tournament this weekend that was hosted by the Health Trust. They are an excellent team, very, very good team. So congrats to them, and we'll see you next year for sure. I wanted to let the community know that for the Friends of Watsonville Parks and Community Services is hosting Watsonville's first mini-con, Comic-Con on September 26th. That's a Sunday at the Youth Center. If you want more information, you can go to Instagram or Facebook and just look up Nerdville 831, and you'll be able to find more information on that. As Celeste had mentioned earlier, the Police and Equity Committee met on Saturday. It was an excellent opportunity to finally meet each other in person and to discuss some of these really important issues. So I thought it was an excellent overall event and workshop meeting. So we're hoping that some really good stuff come out of it. I want to thank the city staff that attended a number of my community meetings throughout the summer that came and helped out to answer questions, provide more information, and just really help out some of our families and residents here in the community. So thank you, and thank you, City Manager, for helping arrange that staff to come to be at the meetings, to meet them in their homes and in where they live. And just finally, one reflection that I have throughout the summer, the one thing that I realized that is most important, that is most vital, is housing in this community. The number of stories that I got of people just telling me that they can no longer afford to live here and that they are leaving, or even a classmate of mine that passed away who lived in Los Baños, was working in Santa Cruz County, is just heartbreaking to me because we don't have enough housing in this community. And so I'm just asking the community to please, whenever there's a good project to support, please support. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. I too had a huge list, as Councilman Hurst did, of all the fabulous things that are happening in our community right now, because people could get out and breathe a little bit. And from Sacco to the Sons and Daughters of Italy to the Music in the Plaza series that I hope everybody continues to attend. The Fire Youth Academy was great. And I thank the chief for inviting us to observe all the skills these young people learned during their summer institute. A Strawberry Festival, the opening of Restore, the Watsonville Rotary Maine Lobster Drive. And don't forget the California Giant Foundation annual Skirt Steak Barbecue if you're interested in that, as well as the Skillicorn Barbecue that's coming up in September to support the Boys and Girls Scouts of America. I do want to take a moment, this last moment, to say that Watsonville has lost a wonderful person. He worked as a senior integrated waste worker in Public Works. His name is Alex Gonzalez, and his family, he has 3 beautiful boys and his wife, Jane, unexpectedly left. And I just want to say we're going to miss him. He did so much for the community beyond just his job here in the city. So if we could take the last 30 seconds and just be quiet and think about him and his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I do want to, send my best wishes to the Alex Gonzalez family. He will be missed by the city and everybody who worked with him directly. Like everybody else, break was kind of not a break. And I first want to remind you all to vote. I would show my ballot, but I've already voted. So make sure you get your ballot in. I think they're due September 14th. So make sure you get your ballot in. Also, I attended the trail segment ribbon cutting, as well as Habitat for Humanity ribbon cutting. It's always great to welcome new businesses and new activities for people to do in our community. So thank you for coming. And also attended the chamber dinner, the Watsonville Rotary Lobster Fest. We had a few mayors bike rides, which were great. Always well attended. And also the Fire Youth Academy. What a great opportunity for young people. It was so nice to watch them in action. It was great to see one of my students doing it as well. Some of my friends, their kids were out there doing it. So it was nice to have a lot of faces that I recognized and that I knew. So, but what an opportunity. If you have a high school age student, next summer, have them participate in this event. It was really great. I was also meeting with my residents. We had meetings discussing homelessness and traffic. These are big issues in our community that are facing our community, and trying to find solutions that will meet the needs of our residents. Coming up, we have Mayor for the Day. I know the last time I think Paco Estrada did it, and I am looking forward to having. I'm going to have two people. I'm going to choose two people this year, and I'm actually going to do a separate one for the middle school. So we'll have 3 winners, and those are going to be due September 10th, I believe, is the essays are due. September 17th, they will be chosen. So yeah, so thank you. It was a busy summer, and I hope some students, they can enter into that contest. All right, so let's move on to the next agenda item, which will be
report out of closed session.
Report out of closed session. That is you.
Thank you, Mayor. So the council had a short closed session this evening, considering only one item, potential litigation, existing litigation, I should say, on case number 21 CV 01755. And the council authorized the special counsel to file a responsive complaint. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Alan. All right, we have one proclamation today. I don't know if we are ready to go. Hopefully we are. So roll it. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you all had a wonderful summer. I'm honored to be giving my first proclamation back from the summer vacation to the Watsonville Youth Training Center. Watsonville Youth Training Center is a nonprofit organization dedicated to enhancing the future of local youth through the art of amateur and Olympic style boxing, whereas the training center provides participants exercise, character development, self-discipline, self-confidence, structure, work ethic, and friendships to help achieve competitive excellence. And whereas the training center promotes the growth of boxing by competing at the local, state, regional, national, and international levels, and the executive director opened Watsonville's youth training in 2017 and currently serves as the fundraising and youth services liaison and has collaborated with organizations such as Families in Transition, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Adopt a Family, and American Cancer Society's Relay for Life. Now, therefore, I, Jimmy Dutra, the mayor of the city of Watsonville in the state of California, and on behalf of the city council, hereby recognize Watsonville Youth Training Center for their commitment to providing a positive outlet for the community and supportive, team-oriented environment where all can feel safe
and welcome. When we first started that we had, we never had this in mind and everything, and we're very proud of basically where we've all gotten. And I did want to acknowledge a very special, I would say, just person in our community who's been showing up every day. This is Amber, and that's her son, Benny. She's part of my women's class. I've always grown the women's class from, I would say, probably about 8 to 10 women, all shapes and sizes. It doesn't matter. You don't have to come here and be fit. That's not what we're about. Thank you, Jimmy, for letting us be here.
A little background, where it was located, it was in the middle of gang territory. And one story is the one kid, we were going to tournament in India for 7 days, a national tournament. We reached in our pockets and made sure that he can go. And that kid, even though he lost, he was having a good time. He was happy. Dropped him off at the end. His mom came out, started hugging him, kissing him, and started hugging us. And I was like, wow, she must have really missed him. If we would have came home a day earlier, his best friend that hangs out from his house got shot 5 times. And he would have been with him. Choked me up every time, but his mom appreciated that boxing saved his life. So I know it moves, and it does things to kids. And we decided we wanted this for our own time, because we live here in Watsonville. There's kids here that need our help. They come in smiles, but we don't know the situation. But boxing is not just about a sport, it's about confidence.
Thank you. And I just wanted to also note that she is one of less than about 20 female owners of a boxing organization in the United States. So there are 2 in Watsonville, and we all know the other one, Karina Moreno, and Claudette is the other. Claudette is the other one. So we have 2 women running boxing arenas and academies here in the city of Watsonville. We should be very proud of that. They aim at lifting women up. As you can see, they have classes just for women, and I had a opportunity to speak to Amber in the back, and this really saved her. She was dealing with some personal physical issues, and getting to the boxing ring every single day really saved her. So this family is doing great things in our community, and it was such an honor to give them this proclamation. I don't know if anyone else would like to make any other comments. Please feel free. If not, we can move on to the next topic. Thank you. Okay, one of the big issues that we've been facing here in our community has been domestic violence against women. And I had a great conversation with the executive director of Monarch Services, Laura Segura, over the summer. And I said, I want you to be the first person to come back and to speak to our community because we are in really troubling times when it comes to domestic violence. And so she agreed, and I'm here happy to say, Laura Segura, please take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayor and City Council members. Laura Segura, I'm co-executive director of Monarch Services. We are based in Watsonville and have office in Santa Cruz and a confidential shelter as well. And we have been providing domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking intervention and prevention services in our county for the past 44 years. Many of you know us by Defensa de Mujeres. So we've been around Watsonville for a while. And I'm going to share my screen because I want to share a presentation, a short presentation, and share with you what we have been seeing around domestic violence and our work together with other community-based organizations to address the increase in violence. So we're here today, as I mentioned, because the increase. It has increased significantly, dramatically, and we need help from the community to address this. We've had a 250% increase in crisis and support line calls, a 75% increase in the number of services that we have provided, 150% increase in the number of victims and their children who have fled their homes and who are now housed or have been housed at our emergency shelter, which is in a confidential location in our county. And sadly, today we had to add another individual to the number of domestic violence femicides happened in the city of Capitola. Over the past 10 months, our community has had 5 domestic violence femicides. This is unprecedented. So the question is, what is going on? Why? We understand that the impacts, we've been researching this ourselves in addition to what our clients have been telling us. And what we know is that the impacts of COVID are one of the huge reasons why we're seeing an increase, because it's been extremely traumatic for many people in our community, especially those who have experienced significant trauma in their lives, such as collective trauma, cumulative trauma, such as racism, poverty, traumatic impacts of COVID, getting ill themselves or the fear of getting ill, having loved ones pass away, having to be an essential worker, the lack of childcare or school resources, loss of jobs. It's all created this cumulative trauma for our community. And historically, when there's a cumulative trauma or trauma after trauma, the end result is desperation, which most often leads to violence. We know poverty drives violence, racism drives violence, stress after stress after stress drives violence as well. So here are just some of the causes. People that suffer from domestic violence have also been very isolated from friends. They typically depend on their comadres, their family members, to be able to seek support when they're in violent relationships. They did not have that during the pandemic because people were forced to shelter in place. And so those support networks did not exist. There's also overcrowded housing conditions that we're all very familiar with in our community. And so those are additional stressors for folks to be dealing with on top of everything else. And when you look at domestic violence, it's really about power and control. Abusers seek power and control over the people that they abuse. So the fundamental issue around domestic violence is power and control. The good news is, I think it's good news, is that the violence is a learned behavior and can be unlearned. So children do not grow up just with this behavior. It is learned. They learn it in their home. They learn it in the community. They learn it in school, and it can be unlearned. So I always hang on to that hope that we can help unlearn that behavior, especially when we're doing early intervention with youth or prevention with children and youth at earlier ages. And one of the things that is really problematic is that oftentimes people ask the question is, why doesn't she just leave? And it's a very oversimplified question to a very complex issue. And one of the things that is a huge takeaway, hopefully for you today is, and others in the community, is that the most dangerous time for a victim is immediately after they leave the relationship. So encouraging someone to leave a relationship puts them in high danger. What we have seen with the femicides is that people, the victims, most likely were trying to cut off their relationships with the person that harmed them. And as a result, that person that was harming them no longer had the power and control that they typically had during the relationship. So again, very complex issue, and being able to support victims through these situations is really important. Let me try to get this. So here's our call to action. We had a webinar a few weeks ago to encourage community members to help get involved, and we're asking you as a city council and the community who's out there to help us. And one of the first things is to listen and believe. We know about the Me Too movement. How often have we heard that women and victims are not believed when they come forward? And so it's really important. That's where we need to start, is we need to listen and believe them when they come forward. Again, and also not blame or shame them when they do share this information. It's really important as us as community members that we check in on our loved ones and neighbors. Again, they don't have the support systems that they used to probably have. And so it's really important that they not be isolated and that they have contact. So being able to check in on them and just say, how are you doing? Is there anything I can help with? And then speaking of helping with safety planning, being able to have a plan B for them to be able to get out of the relationship or flee their home, having things in the car ready to go. So including driver's license or identification, money, things that the children might need in case they need to flee. We see that all the time when our survivors are fleeing to our confidential shelter. Using social media to raise awareness and provide resources. Many people using that platform is really effective way to be able for people to seek help and being able to share that information. We need to see an increased access to mental health services because many of our survivors have these traumas, historical trauma that they're dealing with. And we need to be able to provide that. So there isn't enough of that in our community. And then as a funding organization, for the city of Watsonville, you're able to support critical community services for people with the highest rates of trauma. So this is really important as you're thinking through some of your funding decisions is how do we reduce the violence? Well, here's a way. You look at those with the highest rates of trauma and being able to fund those organizations or community efforts that are targeting that. So that concludes my presentation. I didn't have a long time to present, but that is in a summary of it. Here are our services, our contact information, our website, and of course, our 24 hours bilingual crisis line and support line for people who want to reach out to us. I will open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Laura. Are there any council members? Councilmember Garcia.
Yes, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and I took advantage of Defensa de Mujeres services to help me through my trauma. My question is, many in our community, just lay people, they don't want to get involved in anything such as domestic violence. And so what can be done to help them feel safe and that they can and should be involved?
That's understandable because it is one of those situations that we don't want anybody to put themselves at risk. So we would encourage people, if it's safe to do so, to intervene, bystander intervention if it's safe. If not, to seek help from the authorities or encourage that survivor to seek help privately in a separate setting. Being able to share, if it's a neighbor or if it's a family member, giving them a card or giving them our contact information. Oftentimes it takes a phone call, being able, and the person, we call people like that a support person, someone who is concerned about their family member, their friend, or their neighbor. They can call our 24-hour crisis line and we can walk them through it if they would like, if they're unsure what they can do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Hurst, then Councilmember Estrada.
I just want to thank Laura for her longtime services. You know, as a teacher, I heard a lot of stories about domestic violence, and my wife happened to be on the board of directors of Defensa way back in the day as well. And so I just want to say thank you very much for your presentation today and informing the public of your services. And boy, wouldn't it be wonderful if the public didn't need these services, but they do need these services. And thanks for being there for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Estrada, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Laura, thank you very much for your presentation. For those in the community that may not know Laura or Monarch, I've had the privilege to work with her in the Save Lives Pajaro Valley group, tackling COVID issues. And we really do have an invaluable resource in the community in both EDs at Monarch and in Monarch itself. So thank you for all your work. Laura, my question is, are there misconceptions or myths that we can start correcting when it comes to domestic violence?
Well, some of the stereotypes are that people also think that it's a private matter. So it was considered a private matter back in the 70s until these services came forward. So it is very not a private matter. It is a public health, and it affects all of us in one way or another. So that's a huge myth. The other is, just like I mentioned earlier, being able to believe a survivor when they come forward. Oftentimes when they're not believed, they will not report it again to anybody else. They'll keep it to themselves, and which creates a lot of other mental health issues as well. So those are just a few.
And one last question. Do you do any work with Watsonville PD to help train them, or to make sure that they're doing what they can to help these victims?
Absolutely. We have been working with Watsonville PD for many years, and we provide trainings at the roll calls and annual trainings as well. And we also participate at the academy and do trainings there as well.
Thank you, Laura. Those are my questions, Mayor. Thank you.
And if I can just add, we're also working with Watsonville PD and Assistant Chief Zamora on this issue of increased violence in the community. So it's a collective of many organizations that are working with police department to help address this issue.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
Thank you, Laura, for all your efforts. I'm a teacher by profession, and one of the things I think for the public to hear about out there, we hear a lot of things from children, which may not be directly violence against children, but someone in their family, someone that is near and dear to them, who is being beat up or hit by a boyfriend or a girl, whatever it may be. And so there's a very focused route for us when a child is in danger. But when it's not a child that's in danger, can you talk to teachers everywhere out here, that what can they do? What can they may have limited access to some of the adults that are, in this situation, and they don't necessarily want to go through any children, right? And so what can they do?
I'm certainly not a therapist, but I can say that children that witness any kind of violence, it will impact their brain development. So research has shown that. So that is what we do know. And we take that as victim. We consider them to be victims as well. Anytime a child is witnessing violence, they are now considered a victim, and we proceed as such. So they will now need services for teachers to be able to just provide a supportive atmosphere and be able to check in on them on a regular basis and provide a nurturing, safe space for them, and being able to work with other organizations that have the professional capacity to work with those children is what I would recommend.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I think a lot of it is, how do we want to address if a child has these issues, and so if they are considered a victim, but at the same time, we want to help their mothers, their aunts, their grandmothers, without harming. And you talked about that. And so it's a delicate situation. So I'd like to talk to you more about that.
Excellent. Yes, I'd love to. We have support groups in our agency, both the Santa Cruz and Watsonville offices, or virtual. We have support groups for both parents and children. They're separate, but they align very much. So anytime that they want to get home and talk about, they'll be talking about the same content, and we provide that coaching, the guidance with parents on how to talk to their children if they choose to do so. And we definitely have counseling for those children as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Laura.
Sure.
All right. Well, I don't see anybody else. So thank you so much for coming today and giving this presentation to the council. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we can start seeing numbers decline.
Muchas gracias por venir al concejal.
We can
La
start
mesa.
seeing numbers decline when it comes to domestic violence and violence in general. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you all very much for having me, and thank you all for your support as well. Longtime donors, many of you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to Mr. City Manager presentation or update, which
Thank
could
you,
be
Mayor
long.
and Council. Bear with me for one moment as I pull up my
We did the
screen.
presentation. I was correct.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, very good. So thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to provide you and the community an update. A lot has happened over the last couple of months, and I thought I would start off with some of the current COVID trends. I had hoped by this point in time that we'd be talking about something other than COVID, but of course, unfortunately, it is still in our lives, and we've not yet fully emerged from this pandemic. So there's a number of stats and data you'll see on the slide. I won't read through all of it. Probably most notably, there have been 65 cases in Santa Cruz County over the last month. We have also seen the majority of those amongst unvaccinated individuals. And of course, the Delta variant trends, both here locally and across the country, have been very concerning. On the vaccination front, we have about 82% that are now vaccinated with at least one dose in the 95076 zip code. That is fantastic and the result of significant partnership between County Health and all of our community partners. That now represents a higher vaccination rate than any other part of the county, and did not happen by accident. Lots of strong support to bring it to that number. 71% fully vaccinated in 95076, and 67% total county population that have received at least one dose. So those are all positive trends, but it is now becoming more and more difficult to crack that 80% to 90% vaccination rate. On a positive note, we just received news today that the RT rate, which is the level of infection that's occurring from person to person, has for the first time in many months dipped below 0%. That indicates that we're all hoping to see a significant decrease in case rates over the next couple of weeks, including a decrease in the Delta variant spikes that we've seen. So that is positive news and indicates that we're moving hopefully in the right direction. There were not many executive orders issued over the last couple of months, but Gail Newell, our county health officer, did issue an indoor mask mandate last week, now once again requiring that anyone, regardless of vaccination status, has to wear a mask indoors. There are many locations now where community members can get vaccinated, including vaccine clinics that are located across Santa Cruz County. An easy one to access for our community members continues to be the location at Old City Hall, which is welcoming walk-ups Thursdays through Sundays, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. The county is going to be taking over that location soon, and we expect the days and times to change slightly, but we'll update the community as that transition takes place. Only the Pfizer vaccine is available for the booster shots at this time, and only for immunocompromised 12-year-olds and older are now have access for the third dose, again, 8 months after their original dose. But all of that is good news as we have access to that moving forward. The long-awaited FDA approval of our first vaccine came through this past week, and that was approval of the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. This vaccine received temporary approval back in December, and we've all been waiting for the final approval. I know many community members, both locally and across the state, have been waiting for formal and final FDA approval of the vaccine before they move forward with getting vaccinated themselves. And we all hope that with this approval, it'll encourage more of our community members to get vaccinated. We also know with the FDA approval, more and more employers are now requiring proof of vaccination or of a negative test, including today, the Board of Santa Cruz County Supervisors made the decision to require it for all county employees. So we're monitoring that closely, as well as having conversations with the other cities in our region as we move forward with future decisions around employee vaccination requirements. Wanted to also share that after much consideration and consultation with our county health officer, as well as reviewing CDC and CDPH guidelines, we have decided to move forward with allowing the Fire in the Sky Airport open house to take place coming up on Saturday, September 4th. This event will require masks when not eating or drinking, and staff are making intentional efforts to ensure that there's social distancing for all lines, as well as cashless payment. Free masks will be on hand for those that need it, as well as sanitizer stations as well. Of course, this event, as with any planning we're doing in a pandemic, is subject to change if we see major shifts in case counts. But for now, the guidance we're receiving from county health is that these outdoor events can be held safely with the proper protocols. And we know how important these are to the social emotional health of our community members. So we hope everyone can come and join us safely and take the necessary actions to keep yourself and your loved ones safe during the event. There's been a lot of work done over the last couple of months developing a funding framework for the American Rescue Plan Act. This represents approximately $18.2 million that the city of Watsonville will be receiving, specifically focused on helping our community recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. We've held 2 community workshops with all of our community leaders and partners around the table, brainstorming where those areas of priority should be. And over the next couple of weeks, we will be holding 3 working groups around areas that were prioritized. And some of these will sound familiar after Laura's presentation this evening, but those will include mental health and family support. We'll have another group focused on business recovery, and a third specifically around youth development and support. And we hope that through that, we'll have opportunities to build some collaboration with our community partners, bring other funders to the table, and be able to leverage that funding in ways that best meet community need. We also plan on bringing that draft funding plan to the council, the first meeting in September. So a lot of work to do between now and then, but it is coming your way. And as a couple of the council members mentioned earlier this evening, on Saturday, we wrapped up a nearly year-long process with our community-based ad hoc committee on policing and social equity. Throughout the course of that work, over 50 community meetings, big and small, were held to collect input from our community members around what the future of policing, as well as equitable provision of all of our city services and programs might look like. Through a long day on Saturday, some final recommendations were developed, and that report will be coming to the council, the second meeting in October for review. And I just want to thank the many committee members that really put in countless hours to support this really important issue. And we look forward to taking this report forward and moving forward with implementation of those actions. With that, I always share my contact information. I'm happy to have conversations and respond to questions or concerns any of the community might have. And I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Muted. Thank you. Councilmember Garcia.
Yes, I'm so pleased to hear that in 95076, which includes Watsonville, is 71% fully vaccinated. But just last week or so, I went on to the Santa Cruz County Health Department website because it would seem that with such a higher amount of vaccinations, we'd have lower hospitalizations or even identifications of cases, but that wasn't reflected on the website, and I wondered why.
What we've heard from county health is that the majority of cases are being generated in North County
Right.
as well. And we have seen a reduction in our case rates in South County because of the higher immunization rate. We also continue to put the majority of our focus into encouraging community members that haven't already to get the vaccine. More than masks or any other protocol in place, it's really the vaccine that protects community members against severe illness if they were to contract the virus. So that'll continue to be our focus. I neglected to mention too that at the Fire in the Sky event, we'll also be hosting a free vaccination clinic that day as well. So we're looking for any opportunity to make that available to folks that need it.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else? Just a quick comment question. So I do see that the county did approve to move forward with their mandatory vaccinations or weekly testing. I know that these are decisions that I'm being faced as a board member on my boards with our staff. And some are going to be being probably moved forward through management. How do you see this for the future of Watsonville? What are you thinking?
Yeah, we're closely reviewing what those options might look like for us going forward. We've been in conversations, regular conversations with the county, as well as all of the other cities throughout the Tri-County area. The goal is to try to have some consistency as these decisions are made. Of course, my goal has continued to be to encourage as many of our employees here locally to move forward with voluntarily receiving the vaccine so that we don't have to be forced with a mandate. So no final decisions have been made yet, but as we get closer to making decisions, I'll keep the council and the community updated.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Parker.
I was looking at the booster shot, and you had a slide about the booster shot, and you said Watsonville will make that available, but that means if you've had Pfizer, because that's the only one available at this time, you can have Pfizer as a booster shot, but if you had Moderna, then you cannot have Pfizer as a booster shot. Is that correct?
At this point in time, that's correct.
Yeah. Do we have any other places in town that are giving Moderna as a booster shot that you might know of?
Not that I'm aware of offhand. And Tamara, I don't know if you have any additional background on that, but we can certainly make that information available.
No,
That'd be
not
great.
yet, Matt.
Thank you.
I do know, Councilmember Parker, Mayor Pro Tem Parker, that starting September 20th, booster shots for the general public will also be available. So right now it's a more limited population, but they're planning on expanding that in the next few weeks.
Councilmember Hurst.
Yes, as we move forward, I hope we'll also keep an eye on the Freedom zip code. The 95076 Watsonville zip code goes far and wide from the Aptos Hills to Royal Oaks, but there's a little pocket close to the center that we don't want to overlook either, and we need to get a look at those zip code numbers too. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember Hurst. We do know that there's a few pockets in South County that have lower adoption rates, and there is work being done to focus on those areas.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. All items appearing on the consent agenda are recommended actions, which are considered to be routine and will be acted upon as one consensus motion. Any items removed will be considered immediately after the consensus motion. The mayor will allow public input to the approval of the consent agenda. So if there's aren't any separations of the consent agenda, I'm gonna like to go out to the public first. Is there anybody out there who would like to speak on items in regard to the consent agenda? Okay.
Daniel Fernandez, please go ahead. Daniel, please go ahead. We're not able to hear you.
I think he's muted or having some difficulties. All right, maybe we can go on to the next person and then come back.
Okay. Nancy, go ahead, please.
good evening again. I just want to thank and support you on the resolution denouncing hate crimes and bigotry and harassment, and in support of celebration of diversity. That's just a wonderful statement. It's important for so many reasons. I just read that in Salinas, there were hate crimes happening at at one of the schools. Rosie, I'm on a meeting here. Sorry about that. And just one of the biggest things that we need right now to confront the climate crisis, among other things, is unity and moving forward together. And so doing everything that we can to build unity and celebrate the diversity within us is wonderful. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Next caller.
Rosie, I was making a comment to council in public. I was making a comment to council. I can't hear you.
Steve, go ahead.
Yes, I want to agree with what Nancy just said, reminding us that Salinas High School, where I worked for a while years ago, I had not seen anything like that when I worked there. And this incident, I am proud of the NAACP taking such strong action to denounce it and make sure that it does not happen again. And I want to remind everybody that the FBI director has told us that the greatest threat we have is not from the Taliban, folks. It is from right-wing, white, nationalist, racist people. We just saw what happened in Washington, D.C. From the Library of Congress, a man from North Carolina wanted to promote the South and wanted to Biden and Harris to resign. Look, folks, these people are armed. They are dangerous. They are violent. They worship professional wrestling. They worship the UFC. They worship the whole idea of violence, because unfortunately, they have not been able to learn how to resolve their inner differences or use conversation and thought process to work out their differences. And they are extremely dangerous. And again, the city has to stand up to make sure that we will not tolerate this in our community and to prevent violence. One reason why we're doing this so well is because of the fact we have the police department, thank you very much, on our side. And the whole idea behind living a civil life has to do very much with who we watch on TV, what we read, what we enjoy, and of course, our city government. They lead us down that path, and I'm glad to see that Watsonville is leading us down the path of goodness and peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Daniel, go ahead.
Hello. No, I was actually, I agree with the racist thing. However, I think that's peer pressure. I speak to a couple of people like that, and if you get them alone, they're pretty normal. And I'm a Hispanic, so anyway, what I wanted to ask is if there's any way I could reach out to support on a friend that does not want to have vaccinated. She has a family. I don't want to lose her. Is there any way to support that?
Daniel, why don't you reach out to, maybe we can get your email or phone number, and we can have someone contact you and help you with that vaccination.
Fine. Thank
Maybe
you.
Connor or somebody can, if you can reach out to Daniel right now, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. Any other callers?
Karina, go ahead, please.
My name is Karina Moreno, not the boxer. But I'm really excited that you guys are bringing up the drought and the water shortage contingency plan. I am very worried about it, and I'm very worried about how it's going to impact a lot of families in our city. As you may know, there are multiple families in some households. I personally grew up in a household that had 2 families. And so I know what that can look like and what the water bill can look like and what that can look like during a drought. So I'm very excited. I hope you do support it. And I also actually was able to participate in the city's Relief from the Heat event, and I thought it was a great event. I'm hoping that you will support more events like that and help bring more support and more community members there. because I think it's going to take a lot of education like this, education with the children, education with families, because this is going to be something that affects everybody, starting with those in lower incomes. I also really want to voice my support for the library grant. I think what the new director is doing is amazing. All the collaborations they've been doing with the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. And so I'm pretty sure, I'm happy to see that Jimmy Dutra, my constituent, or sorry, the other way, I am your constituent. You are my public servant. But I'm really excited to see that you are a part of that. And Rebecca Garcia también. I'm very happy to see that you're a part of that. And I do hope that the rest of the council will support that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karina. All right, any other callers? Well, let's bring it back to the council for discussion and a motion. Councilmember Hurst.
Thanks, Jimmy. I did want to pull one item and I want to discuss some comments on some other items. The item I'd like to pull for further information and discussion is item 8C. That's the Indian Wells Conference. And I'll go on with my comments on the other items. When you're ready.
Go ahead, Lowell.
Thank you. On 8N, the denouncing of hate crimes and bigotry and harassment, I'm not sure we go far enough with this, you know. I didn't see, you know, when I read the entire length of the resolution, I did see that it included gender and race and natural origin and all those indicators, but there wasn't really any indication in the title that I could see about Asian or Pacific Islanders. And since that is a current hate topic out there in the community, I wanted to make sure that that was covered. I think the intent is there, but it's not explicit. Nor is ageism or senior abuse either. And that is a big issue in the community. Seniors, many of them do feel discriminated against and harassed, and that there's bias expressed toward them. And so I hope that you know, my comments will be received well on that item. Regarding
talk to that? Oh.
Sure, if I could go on with my comments on the agenda, on the consent agenda. Certainly, the revised salary list for bargaining units is needed and appropriate. The airport rescue grant program is, you've got airport supporters on the call here tonight, and I know that every dollar counts at the airport. And when it comes up to the 8G, the pedestrian bridge upgrade and bicycle facilities at Harkins Slough Road, wow. That's a long time coming, and boy, is it needed. And I know that it won't solve all the congestion problems, but anything we can do to make it safer for students is a good idea. Criminal Justice Council, we've been with those folks a long time, and we certainly do need more justice. How about that item on, well, let's see, what was it here? I think I probably lost my place there, but let's go and take a look at item C when you get a chance. I'll pull that.
Go ahead, speak about it now. Speak about your issue, Lowell, with the item 8C.
Oh, well, are we going to pull that item?
I don't know. You tell me. Did you pull it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, then let's talk about that first.
Sure enough, you want to move that to 8 or 9 items removed from the consent agenda? 9. And we'll get the consent agenda out of the way, please.
Beatrice, what will this be?
Yes, we need to move it to items removed. So you can go ahead and move the consent agenda first.
Okay. Any motion for the consent agenda?
I can move the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Oh, well, we got to discuss it.
Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay. I want to ask questions and make a comment on 3, 8I, 8J, and 8N. In regards to 8I, the library partnership grant, and the question goes to Alicia. The summer lunch program has ended. In terms of how the $7,000 funds would be spent, is this a reimbursement or were those funds already spent during the lunch program and this is coming to us late?
I don't think Alicia is in.
Councilmember Garcia, I can answer that. That program already took place during the summer, and
Right.
this grant comes to help pay for those employees that were at different sites in partnership with Community Bridges during lunch distribution, summer lunch distribution. So it's coming after, just because of the timing of the council meetings.
Got it. And so this is a reimbursement or was the money already sent before?
I believe it's a reimbursement.
Got it. Okay, thank you. My second question is FJ in regards to the Airport Rescue Grant Program. And my question is, how was that funding used for the pandemic or the virus?
So Councilmember Garcia, we have Director Williams on and he can speak to that.
Okay.
Hi, Rayvon Williams here, Director of Municipal Airport. Councilman Garcia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So the Airport Rescue Grant is funds provided by the FAA for us to offset the costs that we've paid since the pandemic. If you've been to the airport after last March of last year, you will notice that we have screens that were on the counter in the terminal building. We also placed the gel hand sanitizers at both entrances, placed decals on the deck in the lobby, went through and doubled our cleaning activity in the lobby restrooms. That's just in the terminal. We need supplies for that, but we also did the same thing in the Airport Operations Center. Once again, the same thing with the barriers. We purchased masks for the employees. We were able to find masks that are individually wrapped. They were expensive, but what we were able to do is in the early part of the pandemic, we were able to provide them to transient pilots that showed up and didn't have a mask. And that was in the operations area. We went further and also did the same cleaning in the hangar restrooms. There are a number of hangars that have restrooms at the end of the hangar rows, and we had to double those also because of the frequent use. So the $59,000 will go to offset that, and we will also use those funds for some of the notes that Matt has noted relative to the airport open house. So once we have to pay for those additional masks, although we have had some sponsors that have stepped up, but there's a whole host of other things that we're doing to establish the fact that we are truly cognizant and are taking action relative to the guidance from the county health officer. So we're using those funds to offset that.
Very, very good. It doesn't sound like it's enough money though, for all that you've done. But
Well, when it comes to the airport, it's never enough money.
okay. And my last one is in terms of denouncing the hate crimes. Recently, at the request of our mayor, we had an anti-hate crime against Asians. But it came to my attention after we approved that proclamation is that actually anti-hate crimes had really increased to all of those that were listed on the resolution. And so I wanted just to make sure that we were more inclusive in terms of who in the community we wanted to support and protect. And that's why I asked for that resolution in the form that it came.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Estrada.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment on item 8L, and I appreciate having this on here tonight, the water shortage contingency plan. And I also want to thank Nancy and Karina for their comments. I think there's a direct line between the actions that we're taking tonight and climate change, which is here, which is present, which is already affecting our community. And so I do also want to just, give kudos to the city that, that is working on an aggressive, I think an ambitious climate action plan, which I think will help the city do its part. And, as I think it was Nancy who sort of mentioned, the call to action is to get involved, to do your part. We have great organizations such as Regeneración working to educate individuals on this issue. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot to be done. And so I really do appreciate this. And it's very much needed. I'm glad we're getting ahead of this. And hopefully we'll keep doing our part to make sure that we have enough water for every single resident in this city. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, questions? You want to speak again, Lowell?
Yeah, just on the water issue, that's where I got lost earlier. This is really serious stuff because there's a lot of people who love gardening and community gardens in our community, and gardens do require water, and so does keeping your landscape up as well. And we should move toward more conservation landscape. But one of the inadvertent aspects of reducing our water consumption is there's going to be less water going into the recycling program, and maybe coastal farmers may suffer from that if we don't have enough water to supplement the recycled water, because it does need to be blended with it. And so, it's a issue for the coastal growers as well. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, go ahead, B.
Estrada,
Aye.
Garcia,
Yes.
Hurst,
Aye.
Montesino,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Dutra.
Yes. Okay, so what's this new one? What's the, are we not, is this 9A we're moving to? Beatrice?
Yes.
All right, Lowell, what's your questions?
Thanks, Jimmy. What's this conference about?
Well, this conference gives us the latest updates on policy, and also it helps us work and tackle the major issues that we're being faced in our communities, just like the ones you go to, like in Yosemite and other conferences. They're educational.
Well, that's good to know. Who is this group that's putting it on, this Contract Cities?
Well, they're online. If you want to look up their website, you can, but they're an organization that keeps organizations like our cities up to date with current policies that are affecting our communities.
Well, that sounds good. I guess my concern is when I did look them up, they seem to be advocates for contracting out services, getting away from our bargaining unit representation and just hiring independent contractors for things like fire and police and library and water and trash. Maybe
I don't know what website you were looking at, but I mean, they're an organization that keeps us up to date with our policies. So,
well, my concern is that their policies are deep and they're to get rid of unions as a union busting group. This is the Contract Cities that advocate going outside of negotiation with labor unions and just hiring folks. And so it's really difficult for me to want to support this with public monies. And I also—
that is not true what you're saying right now. This is not election season yet. Save it. What is wrong with you? That is not what this is about. Just because they're called California contract cities, you're pulling that out. That's not what they do. I just told you exactly what it is. It's an organization that keeps us up to date with policies affecting our communities. I don't know what is, you got to give it up coming after me all the time. I just, like you're making this up.
Well, Jimmy, I'm not coming after you at all on this. This is the organization that's a union busting organization. And I think we should not fund union busting organizations.
You are being untruthful right now. What is wrong with you, Lowell? That is not what this is about. Every council member can go look at the website.
I don't think it's really not about me. It's about this organization. Let me ask another question then.
It's about how you feel about me, Lowell. That is what this is about. It's been that since day one, because I didn't ask you permission to run for city council in 2014. So you have had a problem with me ever since. Now, I don't mind.
Excuse me, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Mayor, can we get back
Yes,
to
hold
the
on.
actual discussion?
Ari.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Mayor Pro
If you wanna
Tem,
have this
you're out of
personal,
order. You are out of
argument,
order, Mayor
do
Pro
it.
Tem. You're out of order.
You're out of order, sir.
No,
You're
you are
out of order. He brought up something.
And I'm
Let's go
telling
talk
you
about it.
that this is unacceptable. You are making up untruths about what this conference is about. And that's what I'm saying. Ari, if you want to side with him, which you do, you are more than welcome to. But that is not fair to be untruthful right now.
Mayor.
Well, Jimmy, let me finish, please, okay? This is not about you. This is about this contract cities group that I think is probably anti-union, and I don't want to see our
just like you said, I think it's anti-union.
Units suffer and have anybody educated about busting unions.
Okay.
Now, here
ask
I have
the unions, ask the unions how they feel about me, Lowell. Give me a break.
Well, I'm sorry that you've taken it personally. It's not about you. It's about this organization that you're going to go get educated by. How about the lodging? I see that we've got airfare on here and we've got a tuition or a conference registration. What about the lodging?
The lodging I'm going to take care of myself. Why? Why does it matter to you where I'm staying?
Well, I didn't know.
We only get a certain amount of per diem, Lowell. We only get and so if I want to spend my own money to lodge somewhere, I have the right to do that. I didn't ask you for it. I haven't asked the public for the money to go somewhere to stay overnight. I'm paying for it. So I don't get it.
Sure, that's good to hear. I just wanted to make sure some contractor wasn't paying for it or some special interest or, somebody that you might have to declare a gift from.
Like when you go to Mexico and they fly you? I don't know, Lowell, come on, give me a break. If anyone's taking gifts, it's not me. Everybody has to do is look up public records to see that organizations fly you to Mexico.
I don't mean to rain on your parade in Indian Wells.
You're not.
It hasn't rained there in a long time. How come it's
rained on my parade since day one? So don't worry about it.
The prepaid aspect of it, how did this get prepaid?
Why don't you ask city staff that?
Well, it is the conference you're going to. I'm sure you know.
How it works, Lowell. Our city pays for it, just like they pay for when you go to Yosemite and hang out in the snow or whatever you do. Like I never question you. Lord knows if you're coming back with any more information. I don't know. So, I just think this is really so hypocritical. I don't ever question what you do at Yosemite on your conference. I just had to sit here and get totally put on check by you. And I sat here and I told you exactly what they did. And you are saying I'm lying. Go online, look at the information. You're trying to make some excuse that's anti-union. It's not anti-union.
No one said you were lying, Jimmy.
You said, I think this is an anti-union thing. So that people could rewind and watch this video again. And you said, I think. It's not, you don't even know for facts. So, yes,
well, we'll look them up some more.
Okay. Unbelievable. Go ahead.
Okay, so regardless, Mayor, he requested, and this is what I heard, that if you're talking, that they're going to be giving you policy updates, things that they're doing, and there is a movement out there to contract out for services. So Mayor Dutra, Jimmy, I think the only thing is, is making your position clear on it right now and say, well, if that's one of the policies that they report on, you're not in control of their agenda, right? And then, that's just one of the policies that they are going to discuss. And whether you're in agreement with it or not, it's presented at that meeting. I don't know. I just think it's very important for, all of our employees to be very positive and feel good about it. And it doesn't mean there's a decision to be made. It means that that is a point of discussion. And in this group, if they're presenting policy, just like League of Cities, they're going to talk about contracting out, because that's one of those policies that certain cities are looking into. And that's all the comment I have.
Okay, well, I was endorsed by the unions. I have been a big supporter. You guys are making a big deal out of something that's not true. So I don't know. I can't sit here and, if you guys aren't going to go and, you can go on the website. Nowhere on there does it say that. So, and the public can go on the website too, California Contract Cities Association.com. You can see what it's about. We are supposed to be educating ourselves, making sure that we're on top of the policies for our community, and making sure that we're continuing to do educational pieces so that we are bringing the best knowledge back to our community. And when you're trying to stifle it, what are we doing for our community? Lowell, this is completely personal between you and I. And I don't even go to the links that you go to. Yes, it is. And everybody knows it. So, I just think that it's really unfortunate that we have to take time out of our meetings to have this discussion like this. I don't do this to any other one of my colleagues. I just can't believe it that this game has to continue to go on like this. At this point,
I think it's unfortunate, Mayor, that you continue on, and you're the one that seems to me that you're wasting our time.
Okay,
so let's move forward.
Fine. Is there a motion, or does someone want to make a motion?
I move to approve this agenda item.
Thank you, council member.
I'll second it.
Thank you, council member.
Well, I'll speak against it because I don't think that the public and our employees want us to pay for educating people to bust unions.
Go ahead, Beatrice.
Estrada,
Aye.
Garcia,
Yes.
Hurst,
No.
Montesino,
No.
Parker,
You're muted, Artie. Do you wanna?
No.
Dutra,
Yes.
3-3, the motion fails.
Wow, this was completely political.
No, it's about supporting organized labor.
Well, it has nothing to do with that. I support labor. You're really being untruthful, and you're being a liar. You are the reason why people don't like politics. It's time for you to go. Next year, please retire and stay out of politics. But we know you're not going to. Next item. (10A).
Mayor, that item has been continued to a date uncertain at the request of the appellant.
Great, thank you. 10B. We
Yeah,
have,
I have a question on 10A,
Go ahead.
if I may. And I think it's a legal question, so I'll ask Alan Smith. Why was this being put off? What is the time frame when it comes to the appeal?
I was not in communication. Thank you for the question. I was not put in communication with the appellant. It's my understanding from talking to other staff that the appellant requested it be put off, and it's unclear to me what the reasons were, but others may have a better idea than I.
The appellant emailed us and they were not available for this date after we had published the required notices.
And what is the timeline for an appeals process for this?
You gonna answer that?
I think the appeal is heard at the next available meeting, and that's determined by a variety of factors. Am I correct, Beatrice?
Yes, it's the ability of staff. And so that's why we had it at this meeting, but the appellant was not ready.
Okay, and so it can go on and on and on in perpetuity if this kind of thing keeps happening? I mean, I'm just legally, I just kind of want to know where we're at.
No, it can't go on in perpetuity. The council has the ability to get, once it's appealed, they hear it. You know, if you don't give them reasonable accommodations, it could be a denial of due process. They have an ability to be heard on their appeal, but no, not perpetuity. You know, if it goes on for several months, that would be an issue. But for a 2-week or 4-week meeting, especially with COVID and especially with the summer recess, that's probably not an unreasonable request. Although again, I was not, the request was done clerically as would be appropriate.
Mayor Pro
So there's
Tem,
oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem, I would just add that for your benefit and the council's benefit, the appeal is also not holding up moving forward with the processing of those businesses that did receive permits. So from a timing standpoint, you know, there's no sense of urgency necessarily from the staff side. This is the first request they made for a continuation. But to Alan's point, you know, at some point the appeal needs to be heard, and our hope is that we can get it scheduled in the near future.
Okay, so there's no legal timeline.
There's no date certain. It's not like 30
Date
days,
certain.
60
Okay.
days, not like that. No, there is not.
Okay, all right, thank you, Alan. I appreciate that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
What law?
Well, as we move forward on this subject, you know, I'm glad to hear the appeal whenever it comes before us. But I noticed that the county is adjusting some of their cannabis restrictions, and that they're actually kind of loosening things up a little bit. We've seen in other municipalities up and down the state, particularly in coastal regions, you know, there are municipalities that are you know, receiving great benefits financially in tax dollars from cultivation and retail sales and such. And maybe sometime in the future, we ought to go back and kind of look at what we've done and what we could maybe do better, and think about our next steps when it comes to dispensaries or cannabis production or processing or any of those other manufacturing things that are associated with it. I sometimes feel like we're missing the boat a little bit, but I know that we had to go slow and find our way, but I see other municipalities moving forward while we may be left behind.
Moving on to the next item, 10B. Public hearing to consider 21-unit townhouse project on a 1.5 acre located at 547 Airport Boulevard. This is going to be presented by Director Merriam.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, and members of the public. I'm Justin Meek, Principal Planner, and I'll give in staff's presentation for tonight's for item 10B. Okay. The project for your consideration tonight involves a townhome project at 547 Airport Boulevard. Just by way of an overview, I'll touch on the project location, what the project entails, discussion of key aspects about general plan policies, design considerations, the development standards, the required findings that would need to be made to support this project, and recommendation. Following my presentation will be one by MIG, the consultants that helped prepare on behalf of the city the initial study to support a mitigated declaration for this project. There's a little bit of a delay in the slides. Here we go. As I mentioned before, it's off Airport Boulevard near the intersection with Hangar Way. Currently, the site is designated for industrial development, and nearby are existing development as well as some residential development, particularly the mobile home park just to the right. Across the street is areas that are designated for excuse me, public facilities, and is where the airport is located. The site is just over 1.5 acres in size. As shown with this aerial photograph, the current site is a rebar construction business as well as a single residence. Off to the left is existing industrial type development, as well as a mobile home park to the right. Nearby is a single family neighborhood. You can see across the street are hangars that are part of the Watsonville Airport. Showing current conditions are shown here in these photographs of both the existing residents as well as the rebar facility, as shown here as well. There's large open areas as well as an office space that's part of the operations of this particular business. As part of the proposed project, those facilities and structures would be removed, and in its place is the proposal for 4 two-story buildings that would total 21 units, 3 of which, or 15%, would be at affordable rates based on the city's inclusionary affordable housing ordinance. All the structures are 2 stories up to about 26 feet in height, and they range in size of roughly 1,400 square feet in total floor area. They have 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. A single car garage is provided per unit, as well as a single tandem space in the driveway in front. Along with 16 visitor parking spaces, the project would provide a total of 58 parking spaces. Other key considerations or aspects of this particular project involve over approximately 300 square feet of open space per unit, for a combination altogether of roughly 11,000 square feet, which is more than the city's requirements. The buildings themselves would have smooth tiled stucco, but other accents to provide visual interest, such as wood fascia accents, as well as canopy projections, in addition to some horizontal wood siding on the garage doors themselves. Here are a couple of illustrations and profiles to give you a sense of the scale and massing of the proposed buildings. You can see the breaking up the roof line, but the wall planes, again, to make it a more visually interesting type structure. Looking at the site from the top down, this shows the relationship of the driveway entry into the site and the 4 buildings. The main entrance is in the upper right corner off Airport Boulevard, via 20-foot wide driveway. That means fire requirements. As you round the corner toward the end, there is a file turnaround. And if you continue down that area, you can see that there are visitor parking spaces as well. The layout of the buildings is here. It's mainly just the takeaway is that the units are mirror images of one another, and they're grouped everywhere from 2 to 3 to 9 units at a time in these various configurations. The floor plan themselves are almost identical. The only difference is between the interior and the exterior units, where there's a slight pop out on the side next to the main loft area. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Some other key considerations and information for your use is that as you enter the site, there's some textured pavement at the driveway entry and just before the bend of the curve. There's various forms of fencing material that's proposed, both wrought iron facing the roadway as well as wood fencing along the interior sidelines. One thing to note is that a block wall would be required on the west and south property lines that adjoin existing industrial development. And this also just highlights the location of where the trash enclosure would be located. Amenities that are proposed as part of this project include a central location where the community can congregate, and involves a barbecue and picnic benches with a pergola, a lawn for passive play, and then a tot lot for little kids. There's also this green meadow feature that's used for stormwater purpose, but can be used for passive recreation at the same time. In terms of discussion, I'll touch on some of the general plan and zoning amendments that are required as part of this project. Discussion of language consistency, as well as project consistency with development standards. There are a few modifications that are requested as part of the PD process, of course, environmental review, and I'll touch on that as well. The site, since it's an industrial use, is currently actually designated industrial and therefore would involve a change to residential. And based off the number of units, that would be at a high density categorization. The overall project is consistent with several goals and policies within the general plan, including those related to housing, land use compatibility or suitability, design and site improvement. There would, of course, be a marginal loss of industrial land. As you can see, it represents 0.3% of the existing designated land for industrial use citywide, so a very small amount. But otherwise would provide more housing options, which is something that has been a priority of the community. And of course, it provides, especially with the block wall, a transition between residential and industrial uses, particularly with a nice transition between the mobile home park, this site, and the adjoining industrial uses as well. Technology. It's a little bit slower than you want. Okay, all right. So we can get back to that slide. All right. Along with this request is a request for certain modification that would be allowed as part of the plan development process. There's 5 in total, and they have everything to do with having a 1 instead of 2-car garage, some fence height along the exterior side yard area of 6 feet, as well as the location and spacing of parking spaces. And I'll touch on a little bit more on that in a moment. And these, of course, the plan development process allows for changing these standards so you can better fit the units on a smaller site for a little more clustering. And that's the essential reason of why they're proposing to do it. The 1-car garage seems reasonable, both for the reason that it doesn't have direct access to the public street, but off these private drives, and of course wouldn't be visible from the public realm or the street itself. The 6-foot-tall fence, again, it serves like an exterior side yard, and that's appropriate for that kind of setting and helps control access. And of course, the wrought iron is a nice material and is appropriate along the frontage area. The 4 feet between parking stalls, it only applies to one of those lots. And there's an internal lot, lot 12, where the parking space is a little bit closer to the adjacent building, but can easily address with wheel stop. And similarly, 3 of the lots between 9, 12, and 13 involve basically parking right along the side property line. Of course, their development standard speaks to having landscaping between the side property line and any parking, which isn't possible the way this is laid out. The overall design of the project is very well composed, balanced, and has nice articulation. There are various materials, as I spoke to before, that make it overall a nice looking development. The overall facades are broken up with trim, offsets, balconies, and various roof heights to help create a more interesting looking building. And of course, there's substantial landscaping and common open spaces provided for the residents' enjoyment and use. Otherwise, the project is consistent with the city's development standards for everything from building height to minimum required land area, exterior, interior side setbacks, except for the one exception we noted before, open space requirements, yard storage, and so forth. And so those, again, the PD process is being exercised just for those 5 things I mentioned previously. It also conforms with the city's minimum parking requirements. A project that involves 21 units with 3 bedrooms requires 42 spaces. And of course, there's the garage and the driveway that provides those 42 spaces. And then there's 16 guest parking spaces at a ratio of 1 to 4 bedrooms for a total of 58. We have received some public comment of late. While there wasn't any comments at the Planning Commission by the public, we did receive a few that came in the last several days. This one from Jean, I don't know exactly how to pronounce her last name, but she represents the property, the owner at Summer Hang Way, and she had concerns about noise. And so staff gave her a call and explained that as part of the proposed project, that this would not affect the operations of the existing businesses, and that a block wall is required to be installed. And that in and of itself would help provide noise attenuation. And she appreciated learning that particular fact. We also got Lowell Hurst also raised questions about cannabis cultivation facilities nearby that share a property boundary to the rear. Again, noting that not only does the block wall to help provide separation, the existing or the new residential use would not otherwise affect their operations. They would still be able to operate in those locations. And of course, they also have security measures that are required to be in place, as well as air filtration requirements to ensure that any cannabis odors remain within the facilities and can't be smelled outside. We have got communications from the WAC, the Watson Aviation Airport Advisory Committee, and they had concerns around the ability for the city to approve a project like this in the first place, around their concerns around the general plan and whether it's adequate. One thing staff has shared previously, and we can share here as well, is that the lawsuits that affected the general plan update from a few years ago applied to the 2030 general plan, which of course that's been formally rescinded. And land use decisions since that time have been based on the 2005 general plan, including residential housing developments, such as the one up the street on Airport Boulevard, for roughly 50 units. And again, apologize for the delay. And of course, William Parkin with Whitmore Parkin, which is the legal counsel for the WOPA, provided a long letter that has been shared with council that addressed or raised questions, everything from the need to prepare an environmental impact report, raised questions about airport related impact analyses, and again, the approval of the proposed entitlements. One thing to share with the council and the public as well is that as part of the initial study that was prepared for this project and informs the MMD under your consideration tonight, was the consideration of whether or not the project will result in a safety hazard because it's within 2 miles of the public airport. This discussion is included in the initial study under section 6.9 that has to do with hazards, including hazards related to airports. And I noted that with any, and know that for any new updates to the general plan or any adoption of specific plans for that matter, it would have to go review to Caltrans Division of Aeronautics, that the appropriate guidance document for this is the handbook, or otherwise known as the California Airport Land Use Planning Handbook. And that within that handbook, it defines the compatibility criteria for land uses. It defines the 6 safety zones, 1 through 6, 1 being the most restrictive because it relates to and represents the runway protection zone, and the least restrictive, or which is the traffic pattern zone, is zone 6, which is low risk, which is because it's not associated with takeoff and landings in or near the runways themselves, and that's why it has a relatively low risk. Of course, the project site is in zone 6. The basic compatibility criteria in the handbook, as shown in the figure 4G, speaks to and discusses how residential projects are normally allowed, provided that it meets certain thresholds. And the thresholds, the lower range of thresholds provided is 800 people per acre. And of course, a project with 21 townhome units doesn't come anywhere near exceeding that threshold. It also speaks to the importance of noise and overflight impacts that should be considered where ambient noise levels are low. A noise discussion is also included in the initial study under section 13.2 or excuse me, 6.13C. And in it, it discussed the ambient noise levels primarily being as a result of traffic. And there's a traffic study to inform the amount of traffic that would occur in the site. Also noting that the area is not recognized as a noise sensitive area. And here's the references for this information. And that the estimated aircraft noise level that contribute from aircraft is only 46.5 CNL, which is not very noticeable. Further, there's mitigation measures that are included in the MND and including the project entitlements that require an acoustical analysis to ensure appropriate noise levels within the buildings themselves so that there will be no impacts to the residents. Other key conditions what the council should be cognizant of include the ones for a no hazard airspace determination. This will involve filing a 7460 form with the FAA to conduct an aeronautics study. That would, one clarifying comment on the language of this is the last sentence here, noting that the aeronautics study shall confirm that the proposed structures do not exceed obstruction standards and therefore would not represent a hazard to navigable airspace. There we go. And as far as the tentative map, there's another condition that also relates to overflight. One is which that there needs to be a recorded overflight notification on the property, and that would run with the land to ensure that existing property and any future property owners understand that there may be subject to annoyances or inconveniences with aircraft that fly to, from, and around the Watsonville Airport. A couple other conditions that might interest the council as well. There's a requirement for a new street light near the northeast corner of the site near the driveway, as well as the provision of new street trees along Airport Boulevard. And of course, a project of this nature is consistent with the adopted housing element goals and policies, namely to help with meeting the regional housing need assessment for all income groups, to provide lower, moderate, and above moderate income households to achieve a balanced community. As such, the council may make the required findings in support of the project involving a general plan and zoning map amendment, adoption of PD overlay, the tentative map, and of course, special use permit and design review. And therefore, the recommendation is for the council to allow the construction of this proposed project at the project site, involving the adoption of a resolution for the MND, a resolution approving the proposed general plan amendment from industrial to residential high density, introducing an ordinance for the zone change from industrial park to RM3/PD. And I should note that because there's a PD overlay, that doesn't require 5 affirmative votes for that to be adopted, as well as approving the tentative map and the special use permit with design review and specific development plan with the proposed modifications as proposed by the applicant. Now, following my presentation will be a separate one by MIG, Jeff Hamilton with MIG, just to help provide a brief overview of the environmental review that was conducted and be available to answer any technical questions concerning that as well. So with that, let me make sure that, let me stop sharing my screen.
Council, while Meg gets ready, we're gonna go ahead and change interpreter. So you may hear Carlos coming on again like you did an hour ago. So we're gonna change interpreters right now in the meantime. Go ahead.
Are we ready, Beatrice? We're good. Okay, Carlos said we're good. Okay. At this point, should we let the Ortiz speak first and then we can have questions? You're muted.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Dutra, council members, community members. Eve and I are the owners of 547 Airport Boulevard. We've been active community members For over 25 years, we've owned and operated the steel rebar company since '99. Eve and I care about our community, and we believe that the use of this property at this time is to provide for housing in the city due to the housing crisis. This housing is primarily going to fit the low to moderate income level. Additionally, the property with the benefits that Justin already spoke of, we're also exceeding the open space required, and additionally, each unit will have 308 square feet, private rear yards, tot lots, and play areas. Also, to discuss about, we've added solar panels to all the units. This will help conserve energy and usage for the occupants. The panels will be located on the roof of the buildings and concealed behind the parapets. The typical roof plan building section are on sheets 8-10. Not sure if you have those available tonight, but we'll be also dedicating a circuit for recharging of electrical vehicles in the garages. And then also, having worked with Justin and the city for nearly 3 years on this project, it's been reviewed by all city departments, including Public Works, the fire department for fire trucks access, trash removal, site drainage, and has met all the requirements put forth. So I respectfully request that the City Council approve this proposed project of townhouses. We believe by approving this project for it will provide a number of amenities for the city of Watsonville, including much needed housing. Additionally, our union iron workers and shop people, of which 75% now live outside of Watsonville and the county of Santa Cruz. 24 years ago, when we started this business, everyone lived in the county. Today, I only have 4 out of the 20 that do so. And out of those 4, 2 live on the property. So a no vote today will keep one house at market rate on the property and most likely lose jobs, whereas a yes vote will provide the 21 townhouses for families. And I'd like to be able to offer the 3 low income units to employees, our long-term employees for our company. And then if I can allow Eve to also talk a little bit about the location for the housing.
Yeah, so this is my first time on a Zoom meeting like this. I usually work in essential services, the construction, and in housing. My main job is residential management, which is rental apartments, but really when it comes to housing, which is what I want to speak of because that's what I know, it's people who rent want the same things that people who own do. They want safe, modern area. They want a community environment, which is provided by these event centers, or not really an event center, these common areas within the development. Rails worked extremely hard to make sure it's someplace where people want to live. And one of the things we're really seeing with our employees is they're spending a lot of time driving. They don't want to live outside of Watsonville. They'd love to live in Watsonville, but they just cannot buy here if the housing isn't available. It's taking away from their quality of life. It's contributing to traffic. I lost an office manager in February to San Benito County. First, he moved his family over there so they could afford better. And with the commute, he was losing time with his family going back and forth, and moved over there permanently. I just wrote down a few quick notes. I have been filling that office manager position myself after trying to fill it with 4 different employees who left, 3 of which for housing reasons. So I've been working there. We've owned there a long time. The improvements on Airport Boulevard for pedestrians, the lighted crosswalks, the sidewalks have really contributed to the area for pedestrian safety, which is a huge plus for people where they choose to live. It's a walk to Freedom Elementary School. It's a walk to Rolling Hills Middle School. It's a walk to the library at Airport and Green Valley. All of these are great for people who might move in. And what we're seeing is Watsonville residents leaving their extended family, leaving their friends. They wanted to stay, and they can't stay here. On the factor on Airport Boulevard, also, y'all probably are very aware of the development going on Aviation. There's restaurants, there's coffee shops, there's gyms, same on Hanger Way. It's a really nice place. I'm out there almost every day taking my walk to go get dinner, maybe over at Beer Mule, maybe meet with a friend, and then get back to work. So I really think, aside from the economic impact of being able to allow more people to purchase in Watsonville, it's a great place to live. The last thing I wrote down that I almost forgot to mention is, with the freeway access being so close, the hospital is right there, doctors are right there, the fire department is right there. But with the close freeway access, it's actually going to take away from some of that city congestion. Even if I lived in this area and I worked in downtown Watsonville, I don't need to go through the city. I can go over to Main Street, no problem, stay off those city roads, and really make it a better place for everyone. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to talk on this part? All right, we'll come back to the council for any questions. Questions only. Thank you, Councilmember Garcia.
Okay, I have 3 questions, and the first 2 go to Justin and the third one to the applicants. Justin, I have received 5 emails opposing the development. One was from the law firm that represents the Watsonville Pilots Association. Basically, they are saying we must deny approval of 547 Airport Boulevard because we still do not have in our general plan the handbook addressing WPA1 and WPA2. How do you legally respond to the lack of that handbook?
How does staff legally respond to the lack of that?
How
handbook?
does, how you're making a recommendation to approve. And so I'm asking you, how can you legally recommend approval legally if we still don't have that handbook? And we've been sued several times because of that handbook.
Well, the city in the past have been sued based
Right.
on the general plan update, the 2030 plan. And the court made clear that the city may not use that document for basing any land use decision. Back in 2014, council formally rescinded the 2030 plan and then reverted back to the previous
Right.
2005 general plan.
But it doesn't
since
have
that
the
time-
handbook. But it doesn't have the handbook though.
And since that time, the city has continued to operate and approve projects based on the 2005, but not the 2030 plan.
Well, because they've won the lawsuit because we don't have a handbook, what's going to prevent them from suing us again? Because we still don't have that handbook.
Well, I wish I could understand, the motivations for the pilots and if and when they may choose to sue and do so again. I can say that based off of the compatibility criteria in the handbook, this project is consistent.
But, and this is where I'm confused, Justin, is I continue to say, or do we have that handbook? Because you refer to it. But if we don't have that handbook, and whether it's the 205 or the 2030, we still don't have the handbook. And so my question to you is, legally then, how can we make approval without that handbook?
Well, the handbook in question is a guidance document that Caltrans has put forward, and it's out of their Division of Aeronautics. And it's based off of providing guidance on how to develop, particularly airport land use compatibility plans by ALUX, to address compatible land uses on the ground, to ensure that.
I understand all that, Justin. You're not answering my question. My question is, we have not adopted that handbook. So how can we approve, give permits for this housing without that handbook? We don't have it.
Councilmember Garcia, could I jump in here? It seems like it's more of a legal question you're asking.
Yeah, it's a legal question.
And probably Justin has done a incredibly good job explaining it, but it's kind of outside his purview. Here's how I would parse it.
Okay.
The two cases, and including the Court of Appeal case, said the 2030 plan had to have a handbook in it.
Right.
Did not say the 2005 plan had to have a handbook in it. The pilots contend that it is retroactive. The city does not believe it's retroactive.
Okay.
That's the legal dispute on the handbook.
Okay.
And what Justin, I think, is saying is that nevertheless, the city believes it is complying with the letter and the spirit of the handbook, even though it is not yet in the 2030 plan and needs to be and will be hopefully at some point. But it's not in the 2030, but he's applying to 2005 because the court did not expressly say that it retroactively applies to the 2005 plan.
Got you. Okay, so then if they sue us and we go to court, we can show them that we're meeting all the standards and guidelines of the handbook.
That's back to Justin on that. I mean, I'm not a planner, so I apologize.
On the issues at hand, when we're talking about airport safety, land use intensity, density, noise, overflight, all those considerations, yes, there's nothing in that about this project that are not consistent or out of conformance with the criteria in the handbook.
Got you. Okay, thank you. That answers my question now. My second question to you is, in this morning's newspaper, you were quoted as the complex having 3 affordable units, but at 20%, are inclusionary at 20%, shouldn't that be 4 units?
For our inclusionary housing ordinance, and forgive me, I didn't speak to any reporters, so I'm not sure how I was quoted.
They quoted you.
Well, they made up a conversation, but in any event, in terms of the affordable units, the city's ordinance requires that for projects between 7 and 49 units.
49 units, okay.
Is
15%. 15%. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And so this next one goes to the Ortiz. The housing development will be surrounded by industry on Airport and on Hangar Way. How will it be protected from the noise and busyness of industry? And I ask this because in my district, I have a neighborhood that's right across the street from the Target complex. And I've had so many complaints about the noise that comes from there. So how are you going to protect the residents of this development in terms of the noise and busyness of the industry, surrounding industry?
I'll go ahead and answer this. Councilman Garcia, thank you for the question. Currently, what we have right there is an industrial next to a residential. The Colonial Manor Mobile Homes is right up against our property.
Right.
And what we did there years and years ago is we put up a high sound wall, which is also included in Justin's plans he was showing. We do have industrial on 2 sides, but on that 3rd side, we are already in a residential environment. And I think not only would we be mitigating the sound from the other existing industrial, but we've been improving the sound situation for the people at Colonial Manor. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, she's right.
Of course,
Hey,
women
thanks.
are always right. Thank you for that. That concludes my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Hurst?
How about a left turn out of the project? Is that going to be allowed or not? That's a very busy street and it's 45 miles an hour there, as I recall, although there is a stoplight at Hanger and one at home.
Yeah, I'll take that one too.
No, I think it was for Justin.
Oh, is that for you, Justin, or is that for me?
It's a traffic.
Yeah, I could address the
Okay.
question. Yes, so there would be possibility for left turn out. And so you're right, it's a 45-mile speed limit in that area. There's adequate sight distance given those speeds in either direction, however. And so motorists would be, they're responsible for carefully getting out into the central turn lane and then merging into the adjoining lane safely. That would be their responsibility.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Montesino?
So looking at the map, I think this is for Mr. Meek. It's an entrance and exit. So like fire trucks, garbage trucks, how they navigate through there and turn around.
So just so you're aware, this was reviewed by our solid waste or those that deal with driving in and out of sites with garbage trucks, as well as our fire inspection manager, who are former firefighters and understand the ability for those trucks to be able to make the turns. It meets the minimum turning requirements and width for those trucks to enter and leave the site. You'll note that as you come around the site and turn in there, that's where the trash enclosure is. And as they back up, that they can then go back in a forward direction the whole time. Likewise with a fire truck if needed. The purpose of that turnaround is for the truck to be able to come back, enter, and then leave in a forward direction.
And is this usual project with an entrance and exit, or do they always have to do 2, entrances?
Larger projects would require at least 2 ingress and egress points, but smaller projects may have 1.
Thank you.
Parker?
Thank you, Dutra. I have a question about all buyers be informed when they are close within like the zone 1 to zone 6, right? And then there's a buyer awareness chain of title mentioning aircraft and what other industrial use, because I use one in the county. People buy by the fairgrounds knowing there's races and everything else, yet then they buy and then they complain about the races. So what's going to happen for buyers, and it doesn't disappear after the first purchase, something that stays in that chain of title, so that people are very aware that they're, even though there may be mitigation with the walls, they're in an industrial area. Is that going to be more than just aircraft sounds?
Well, because of the concern on aircraft, we had that specific requirement that on the deed that the notification of overflight be recorded, so that any property owners down the road would be provided that notification. As far as the real estate industry and also providing other notifications about nearby industrial buildings, I don't know if Alan, you could help if that's something that they would just do as standard practice because of the proximity of nearby industrial, but that, I think that would be something that would be prudent, and certainly there'd be no harm in adding a condition on the tentative map of such a notification as well.
Alan? you have any comment on that?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Because I don't know what are our powers, in making sure that chain stays in the chain of title, so that people, no matter 5 years, 10 years down the road, realize they're buying with industrial areas right around them, so they're fully aware of it. So I'm just thinking, in many places, even in our senior area here, people have bought, and they buy outright, so they don't have to have flood insurance. So they don't even, some of them didn't even know. And
So I'd say a couple things. One is, if something is in a chain of title, it's kind of constructive notice. When somebody buys a property, as you know, they typically, in the old days, used to go to the title company. Now they'll get an email and it'll have a list of exceptions on their title report. It'll say, you got to pay the taxes. You got covenants, conditions, and restrictions. There's some sort of a lien or something like that. And there can be some sort of notice that can be recorded. And then anybody who buys and uses ordinary caution and just reads the title report, which they should do when they buy the house, would see that. So that's one piece of it. The second piece of it is that you're next to an industrial thing are more often than not when the industry comes to them, not when the industry is already there and they come to it. So there's industry over that back concrete wall. There is on one side, and I think if the other side is the parking lot, I think there for the old hospital or old Seagate parking lot. So those things are already there. So it's not going to be something that is there industrial all of a sudden and hasn't been industrial before. They're going to see it. And if there's something recorded, they would see it in their chain of title. Does that answer your question?
well, kind of. I was looking for protections for future Watsonville homeowners, so that they were fully aware of what they enter into. And I understand as an individual, they have responsibilities to read their contracts, that they're purchased. But just because it is in an industrial area, and you're right, industry was there before the house or the housing was there, that they should be aware of that. But 25 years from now, 30 years from now, that may be a very different situation.
Right. And of course, in 25 years from now, a different council could try to rezone the property. There could be an interstate going through. I mean, all kinds of things change over a generation. I mean, if that 30 years ago, Airport Boulevard wasn't the road it is today. And 40 years ago, it didn't go through, did it?
No.
Okay, so things change and you can't prevent it. And people have a right to speak to it when the council considers such things. So I think that's the kind of give and take of it, at least in my mind. Now, this is a planning thing over time. So I'm sure Justin has a lot of good planning ideas to add to it, but those are just my common sense legal things.
Okay, so Justin, if there's anything in there that does follow the chain of title, notwithstanding the aircraft sounds, because that's like that. I'm assuming that comes from handbook requirements, right?
Yes,
that's a part of.
Yeah, so that language is template language for making sure that overflight, that there's language on the title that anticipate that there's going to be planes in the air and you may find it inconvenient or annoying.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I'm not sure I completely got my question answered, but I'm somewhere down that road in the future. Yeah.
If I may, Council Parker, it sounds like what you're requesting is, in addition to a notification about aircraft overflight, should there be also a requirement for notification that the site borders industrial land?
Yeah, that's pretty much essentially it. Thank you, Jeff.
And certainly that could be as part of a motion or recommendation for adding such a condition on the tentative map. And then we can take care of the rest.
Councilmember Estrada.
Thank you, Mayor. Justin, thank you for your presentation. In reading the report, there was a mention that these townhomes would be affordable for people in the moderate income range. I was just sort of wondering, what is your definition of moderate income range?
So I think that comment came from the applicant. Certainly there are income categories that are required as part of the, excuse me, my daughter lost a tooth. Very momentous event in our household.
Congrats.
But I would defer to the applicant what he means by moderate income. Obviously, the deed restricted 3 affordable units would be at different income categories based on the city's ordinance.
Yeah, so for example, I have union iron workers that make anywhere from 60 to 90,000 a year. I was talking to somebody that was allowed a low income unit, and they had a job that paid them 80,000 a year, which I thought was pretty good, but that was deemed acceptable for low income housing. So the numbers are adjusting, and I think quite a few of my employees would be eligible for a lot of these units.
So you're saying that one person would be able to afford one of these units at around $80,000 a year?
Oh, I don't know how that works.
Well, I'm not a mortgage broker, but from what I see, people that are able to buy houses at this size, at the price ranges that these would be at, they seem.
The exact price ranges. Is that what you're going for, Councilman Estrada? What the exact pricing would be?
I just want to know your definition of moderate income ranges.
Yeah, I think there's a local average, and I consider a number of my employees in the moderate range, which
that's where you would count your 80,000 would definitely be moderate, in the moderate range in the area for housing.
Okay. The second question that I have is I know that the facility as it exists right now had a history of some hazardous materials, and I know that these were asked at the Planning Commission meeting. But in case during the sort of what was the phase called during the site assessment, if there is more toxic hazardous materials than anticipated, would the council be informed of that, or the community be informed of that, or is anything like that? Would that come back to us?
Can I answer that, Justin, or partially?
Go for it.
So for on our property, we've had 3 phase 1s required by banks and lenders, and we've passed them all, and they've not required a phase 2, which actually means there are toxics found. The only toxics that I know of are actually existing in the old house. There's lead-based paint in that house, which I think is around 110 years old. And then asbestos. There's asbestos shingle siding, which I think was put on in the 50s or the 60s. So all that would be removed properly by a company specializing in that. But we cut steel and we tie steel, we bend it, and the steel itself is not a toxic.
Yeah.
And if I may, Councilman Estrada, the phase 1 reports did identify presence of asbestos and lead-based paint as part of the demolition or construction activities. those would be appropriately removed from the premises so that they would not expose people or the environment to it.
Thank you, Justin.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Okay, and just my final question for you, Justin. In terms of some of the other projects that we have approved in the last couple of months, how the density here, is it more or less compared to some of the other projects? Less? Okay. Thank you. Those are my 3 questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. I have a few questions as well. So one is, you said earlier that you want to appropriate the low-income housing to your employees. Is that legal to do that?
They showed interest.
Oh, I don't know if that's legal. I would have to defer to the city or the regulatory overseeing government of that, but it would certainly be my wish as I talk, my company would benefit by my employees coming back from being able to own a home in Watsonville instead of renting and living in San Benito, Salinas, Hollister.
Maybe I can ask staff, is that legal to appropriate the low-income housing to already before it's, or does it have to be an open and fair process?
It would be an open and fair process.
Okay, so you can't do that.
It was just a nice idea. We'd love to help our employees out whenever we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand. I just want to make sure you're doing things legally.
Yeah.
You don't want to get sued, which is my next question. Are you willing to take on a lawsuit from the pilots? I personally don't believe the pilots don't want housing to be built. That is an area where there has been some, major accidents, one going into the hospital where a family died in an airplane crash. So I without a 2030 plan, it makes us very vulnerable to a lawsuit, and we've been sued many, many times. Are you ready to take on the pilots if they do sue?
Yeah, I'm aware that the city would have to be indemnified in case that fact. Being in a zone, in the lightest zone, zone 6, helps. And then also that there's other developments going on currently down the street. Raid's project of some 50 homes right on airport, right across from the airport as well, and they haven't sued him.
Okay, so if they do sue, you would be willing to take on that? They have deep pockets. You would be able to take that on?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so let's go out to the public.
Yes. Oh, somebody's trying to get you.
Hi. My name is Karina Moreno, and I am actually, looking to buy a home, hopefully in the next couple of years in Watsonville. I really appreciated that you had the numbers 60 to 90,000. Sorry, my question is for the developers. The city of Watsonville's household median income, I'm not sure if you're aware, is actually 51,500. So that, and my next question is 60 to 90,000. That's not very much, but still our median household income is lower. My other question is there going to be a HOA? Will there be separate payments from that? Personally, I don't think putting this housing next to a cannabis store also is not a big deal because it is very regulated and very safe. It is not like old times, but I am wondering if anyone has gone out into the community to ask other community members how they feel, community members with children. But I am really excited to see this presentation and your next presentation as a hopefully future house owner in Watsonville. Thank you.
Thanks, Karina. Next caller. This is no questions.
Oh, okay.
We're only making
Thanks, Jimmy.
So it's okay. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, I want to congratulate and thank the owners for their very careful, detailed, thoughtful presentation that's been in the works for 3 years to help put this proposal together, and the fact that they are so very much pro-union, the steel workers union, and in addition to that, they are caring about the environment and hazards. The two of them are to be congratulated and thanked. We need many more people like that in Wattsville. We do have some, but we could use even more. I think the city would be absolutely nuts to pass on this project, and I'm hoping, since I went to Colonial Manor last year to campaign for my seat on the Cabrillo board, they complained about traffic noise. I'm hoping Watsonville Reforestation Project will put a lot of trees along the other side of the street in front of Colonial Manor. Trees do reduce the amount of noise pollution, they reduce the temperature, they increase bird habitat, and they breathe out oxygen. So yes, that's a great thing. So please, I'm asking the City Council to support this project. It is a good idea. And you know what? The Pilot Association is just going to have to work it out with the owners. And I'm hoping it will not become a huge, big lawsuit that's going to cost time and money for the city and for our two lovely owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hello, my name is Marjorie Bachman. I'm a Watsonville resident. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I'm a pilot with an aircraft based at the Watsonville Municipal Airport. I represent the 99s, the International Organization of Women Pilots, on the WAC, the Watsonville Airport Advisory Committee, and I'm currently the WAC chairperson. I object to the approval of the 21-house complex at 537 Airport Boulevard, not because it doesn't sound like a fabulous project to provide affordable housing in Watsonville. The owners have done a fabulous job, I can see that. But I object because the city has not complied with the State Aeronautics Act or the mandates of the 2008, 2014 Santa Cruz Superior Court decisions and the 2010 Court of Appeals mandate to incorporate the California Division of Aeronautics Airport Land Use Planning Handbook into the 2005 General Plan. The city does not have the authority at this time to issue permits in the airport influence area. This is 2 miles outside of the airport boundary for land use development while the general plan is inadequate. Now, I know that Mr. Smith and Mr. Meek addressed this, but there's a different opinion about it. I recommend that you all go back to the court decisions and read them and educate yourselves about them. The city has stated that they have utilized a draft airport land use compatibility plan to evaluate development projects in the airport influence area since 2016. The draft airport land use compatibility plan is inconsistent with the court's decisions, does not include the safety zone criteria for land use, and should not be used until it is approved by all appropriate agencies and incorporated into the general plan. The Community Development Department has agreed to present all development projects within.
Your
Okay,
time's up.
so my statement is written up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Audrey. Next caller.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Anyone else like to speak? Sarah?
Sarah, go ahead. Sarah, please unmute yourself.
My name is Sarah Chevet, and I'm a board member of Watsonville Pilots Association. And on their behalf, I want to state that the WPA objects to the project for all the reasons stated in a letter emailed last Friday to the council by our attorneys, and for all the reasons just stated so eloquently by Marjorie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other callers?
I don't see anyone else.
Okay, we'll come back to the council. Any questions, comments, motions? Hers?
Couple of or questions first. Who's the architect on this project?
Fred Latanzio.
And where's Fred out of?
He lives in Aptos, I believe. He also, yeah, he also designed Raid's project down the street.
And back to the block wall, how tall and how thick is that going to be?
Well,
I know they're talking about using 8-inch block, but Justin, I forget how high it goes.
It would be 6 feet, and CMU would be typically around 8 inches thick.
And is 6 feet tall enough to block out those industrial views and sounds and other things?
I would say that, for example, the potential noise complaint inquiry we got from the representative from Seven Hangar, she wasn't indicating that they currently are noisy. She was wondering whether in the future might that occur, and that could potentially create a noise complaint. So that's a long way of saying that there aren't existing noisy operations today. And as far as the overall height needed to address any future potential impacts, it's hard to speculate, but typically a 6-foot sound wall should help attenuate any noise that would emanate from a nearby business.
Well, I know the existing wall along Hangar, some parts of Hangar Way, separating it from residential areas, is probably a little taller than 6 feet, although I think it may vary as well. Currently, there's no sidewalk in front of the project. I assume that that'll be a nice sidewalk there for pedestrians and cyclists and others to use.
You're correct. That would be required to be installed as part of the project.
I think that might be all my questions at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia?
Yes, my question is to Alan. Alan, in listening to two representatives from the Pilots Association, it sounds, and they are definitely opposing this project, which makes me conclude that they probably would sue. And so my question to you, Alan, is the lawsuit against the city, or is a lawsuit against the developer, or both?
Both.
Excuse me?
Both.
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 Okay, so the city is not cleared, even though we follow the guidelines as what's presented by Justin, we still would not be cleared of that lawsuit.
No, that's what the courts are for. People have differences of opinion. The pilots, Marjorie and Sarah have, and Bill Parkin have a different opinion than the staff. And it may end up that way. The project is conditioned on a requirement that the developer sign an agreement defending and indemnifying the city for any legal challenge. And they become, the city becomes the nominal defendant, and they become what they call the real party in interest, the ones that have monetary involvement. And so they would be called upon to defend, and usually, not always, but usually it's the same attorney representing both. So usually the developer goes out and hires counsel. They identify them and they ask the city if that counsel is okay or not. Not always, but most of the time the city says, okay. That happened at the Target Shopping Center. That happened at Home Depot. That happened at all the subdivisions behind Target. That happened at Target, et cetera. It's the way it's the lawsuit has to be filed. It's the city, the decider, and then the real property in interest is the property owner.
So like in the past, when the city was sued, we paid mega bucks. In this case, it would be less for
Okay,
us.
so here's the distinction. We did not pay mega bucks for anything other than the general plan. The general plan is citywide and it affects the whole city, there's no real party in interest. It's the city making the decision. Home Depot paid the defense cost in the Home Depot case. Target, Don Orozco paid the defense costs in that case. The individual developers and the subdivisions behind Target, they paid the defense costs in those cases.
Okay.
But the distinguishing factor is that the general plan is where the city paid, but not in individual projects. There were monies paid, but they were paid by the developers.
Got you. Okay. Thank you, Ella.
And those developments had deep pockets too.
Yeah. All right.
Any other questions or comments? Montesino?
Yeah, I just have a concern where it's sitting. I don't know, I think somebody already brought it up, but making that left turn, exiting there. It just has, to me, because I would drive it all the time. It just has, too many traffic issues just waiting to happen. And I would encourage you, to be have a no left turn, just a right turn, because you're just immediate to a red light, and the way the traffic is going through there, they're going pretty fast. So.
Any other questions, comments? Hurst?
Well, since it is in my district, I do have some opinions formed about it, and I have walked by there. In fact, I've probably trespassed in there a couple of times unnoticed with my dog. And I know that the project's very dense, and I'm concerned about the quality of life for everybody in Watsonville, and not just those who can't find housing. So, I don't want to approve something that's too tight, and the parking is pretty restricted here. But, we're kind of in a bind in this city that doesn't have a lot of extra land and doesn't have a lot of room to spread out and grow. I hate to see industrial land removed from industrial and job purposes, but at the same time, many of those workers can't afford to live in Watsonville, and I would like for them to be able to live in Watsonville. And I wish we had more job generating locations as well as more housing locations. So we're kind of in a tight bind here. I haven't really made up my mind one way or another on this, but it's dense, but that's what the general plan and other things have forced us into here. And so we have to make considerations that we might not normally make, but housing is a crisis as well. And so this is really kind of a toss-up. If the Ortizes are going to do what they say here, and that we're not going to have a whole lot of problems with noise and complaints about industrial activity, and I know that when it comes to noise, the Colonial Manor Mobile Home Park right next door, they are a noise sensitive area. It says so right on the airport maps. And so if it's a noise sensitive area, I would assume that this project is as well. But perhaps there's some mitigation measures made with insulation and double pane windows and all those kind of things that can reduce noise. But hey, it's right next to the airport too. So I don't think I have any more questions. I just don't necessarily have my mind made up one way or another here.
So I have a couple comments. I first of all want to say thank you to the Ortiz family for putting this project forward. It's definitely housing is needed in our community, and the project looks really nice. Some of us have had a lot of experience with the Pilots Association and their concerns, and the city has been on the opposite end of quite a few litigations and court cases that have not been come out positive for the city. I don't know if I'm comfortable moving forward with our community's tax dollars to even pay out another dollar that could be going to something else. I guess my suggestion would be, to the city to get the 2030 plan done so that we can get projects like this put into our community. I think it's safer to build the housing when the 2030 plan is in place. And that way, you guys would be able to build this project without the fear of being, sued. When we think about what Alan said earlier, Home Depot, Target, the housing development behind Target, these are developers that have really deep pockets that probably were able to, match the pilots dollar for dollar. And so I feel that, I don't know if you know what you're getting yourself into at this moment. And so, that's my real concern right now is where we are legally, and what Marjorie just said this evening. She flat out stated rules from the courts, the 2010 California mandate that was not put into this decision, as well as the 2008 and 2014 court cases by the Santa Cruz County Superior Court. So I'm really concerned because, as we heard tonight, the pilots know what they're talking about, and we're always on when I say we, the city is always on the losing end of the stick. So what I think is that it's time to get the 2030 plan done so that we can move forward and build housing and build other things that are needed in a manner that it's going to be approved without fear of being, ending up in a court. So that's where I kind of stand right now. Any other comments, questions, Montesino?
I want to make a motion to approve this project. I know there's a lot of concerns, and but aside from all the concerns, this is a good project. It's a good project for the community, and I move for approval.
Is there a second? Councilmember Estrada. Beatrice, go ahead.
Estrada,
Aye.
Garcia,
Yes.
Hurst,
Aye.
Montesino,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Dutra.
No.
The motion carries.
All right, thank you. Good luck with your housing development.
Thank you.
All right, next topic, we're going to go on to 10C, declaration of a public nuisance at a Sunshine Gardens development in the city of Watsonville, recommended by Community Development Director Miriam.
Just give us a minute. We're going to have our Assistant Director, Rob Allen, give the report for staff. Just needs to be brought on, I believe.
Find out right now.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to make this presentation tonight. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
No.
And yet,
Oh, no, I guess we see you. We don't see anything you're putting up.
Okay. Strange. I can see my screen here in my presentation, but I'm not sure how to share it with you here. There's nothing that gives me that option.
Beatrice, when you get a chance, we want to make sure Bill Abbott's on too.
he's on. You should be able to, you're a panelist, Rob,
And I did press that button, yes.
where it says share screen, go ahead. Do you see that button?
No, I do not.
Susie, can you help him out? Do you have his?
Is it there somewhere? I can't see it.
I'm gonna make this bigger.
Oh,
Okay.
it's down there. Okay.
There.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. So, and I would like to introduce to the city council, our CDD special counsel, Bill Abbott, who has been working with staff on this issue. He is also in attendance tonight. So we're going to talk about the public hearing for Sunshine Gardens, abatement of a public nuisance. I think that it's important that in order for us to understand where we are tonight, we look at a little bit of history. So here's some factors quickly leading up to the required actions. Spring of 2018, the project construction had moved forward without the general contractor, U.S. Longton, calling for a building division for the required inspections. The building division was notified by the city fire department in early summer 2018 that work had progressed up 3 floor levels and some roofs were built on the structures. Building division investigated the construction activities. Multiple framing deficiencies were found to exist within the units. Stop work order was imposed by the previous building official, Eric Simonson, at that time. The repair fixes were submitted by the architect and engineer of record at the request of the building department. For the project, the fixes were then reviewed and approved by the building division. Work was then allowed to continue in the late summer of 2018. So the contractor kind of got ahead of themselves a little bit, a lot bit really, actually, because we do have to do progressive inspections as we go through each level of the homes to make sure that the firewalls are installed and the roof decking is also approved for the nailing. So U.S. Longton was challenged in overcoming the multiple framing issues that were present to be able to secure compliant sign-offs from the building inspectors. Many of the components were improperly installed, of the wrong size, missing bearing point loads, missing required hardware and hangers, and some pre-manufactured roof trusses had been cut and placed in the wrong locations. You're not supposed to cut a roof truss at all. Work was halted by the general contractor, U.S. Longton, during the Chinese New Year of 2018-2019 from about December 15th through February 5th. There was no activity on the job site during the rainy season. The buildings had then been exposed to the rainy weather for almost 2 seasons, and mold was developing on the exterior of the structures. What has happened to the buildings since that time is we've discovered cracks, spalling, honeycombing occurring in the concrete foundation pores. We're missing the firewall membranes between the common townhome firewalls. Mold presence on the exterior sheathing and floor decking. The project is currently under the second remediation efforts by the contractor to clear the mold. They are out there working on the mold issues as we speak. Delamination OSB sheathing raises concerns on the structural integrity of the shear walls as well, and concerns regarding abandonment as the project permits have been expired for almost 15 months. Watsonville Municipal Code 8-1.105J states that permits are suspended or abandoned for a period of 180 days after the time the work has commenced. So we're well past the 6-month period. So we are of the assumption that because the permits haven't been active, it's considered abandonment and or suspended. Here's some photos that have been taken in June of the condition of the property out there. That's June of this year. Some exterior photos to share with you. And there's some storage out on the property in June that basically was not covered and protected from the weather. We've got the roof trusses are laying on the ground exposed to the elements. Roof trusses aren't meant to be laying on the ground for two or 3 years unexposed to the weather conditions. They need to be protected. Here's some more photos of material that's stored out on the job site that didn't have protection. At one time, you can tell from the plastic that was around the material that it did have cover, but it wasn't maintained. And here's some of the wall elements where they don't have the firewall in between the walls. Here's the spalding and cracking on the foundations that we had discovered. On the foundations, open air gaps. This one here is a good rendition of the fact that if you look real closely where this plumbing pipe is, you'll see that the plate on the building is sticking out about 2.5 inches over the top of the foundation. That's supposed to be flush with the foundation. It shouldn't be sticking out over the top of it, which basically tells me that the forms weren't poured squarely. The not plumbed, it's out of square. There's some more photos of some of the interior. Again, the common walls between the townhome units, there's no drywall in between. It's very difficult to get it in there after you've framed it all up 3 stories. There's some cracking and problems with the foundation slabs. You can see some cracking issues around the stairwell. We've got some other issues where it's lifted up around the foundation here. It's not installed properly. There's some nuts under here that are holding that structure up, and it needs to be flush with the foundation wall. We've got some cracking on the foundation itself right here at the stem wall, and it needs a structural fix or repair. It's pretty hard to repair it when it gets to the point that it is. There's nothing really for it to hold on to. Again, you got more cracking in the foundation slabs area. Outside storage material again that maybe was one time protected with plastic, but the plastic's blown off and left to the elements. Here's a photo of some flooring that basically was under weather conditions that had a lot of water that entered into the building, and it's sitting pooling on the floors of the units. So it was exposed for quite a long time. Here's some more exterior photos showing the storage on the outside on the job site. And I guess I'm a little bit concerned about all this plastic from the project that was there before blowing out into the marsh areas, because that's a concern as well. So those are some of the photos of the project that we've recently taken back in June. So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Any questions? Okay, Councilmember Garcia.
Yeah, council members have been receiving letters or communications from the developers and saying that they have now cleared up all of that. This is 2 months later. What can you say about that?
They have cleared some of their issues up in the last 15 to 20 days. So they basically had motivation in order to do it based on our actions that we've taken recently.
And so with that cleanup, is it enough for us not to consider this?
I do have a recommendation for tonight that I would like to share if I have an opportunity to. The staff and city council have worked vigorously with the developer to try and come up with a memorandum of understanding, which might have been mentioned earlier, as well as some other items that we needed to get resolved in order to help move this project forward. We're not amicable to not trying to get the project going, but it's just been taken so long that the project is suffering because of it. So my recommendations are for tonight is to confirm the findings of the public nuisance and direct the building official to abate the nuisance by requiring property owner to sign and deliver the First Amendment to the subdivision improvement agreement by the close of the business on 8/31/2021. Requiring the property owner and the contractor to sign and deliver the First Amendment to the set-aside agreement for the subdivision improvement agreement by the close of business on 8/31/2021. And also the property owner and the surety or bank would also need to be involved in that process. requiring the property owner to deliver all required supplemental subdivision security to the city by the close of the business day, 8/31/2021. The property owner and the contractor also need to deliver us updated and current insurance certificates. The insurance certificates they did provide were expired. And if the property owner does not comply with items 1 through 4 on or before the deadline stated, the building official shall report back to the council at the September 14th meeting with recommendations on abating the nuisance, including but not limited to seeking appointment of a receivership to abate the nuisance. So those are some of the recommendations that I would like to make to the council tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Parker?
Hi, Rob. Thank you
Hi.
very much for such a clear and boy, those pictures. How many times have they gone through the same process of having to abate and then, you know, they left it out there, abate, left it out there? How many times and over the course of how many years have they done the same thing?
This project has gone on for roughly 4 years now. We're in the 4th year. I think it started in 2017 where the foundations were poured. We're in 2021 now. Foundations obviously in themselves aren't too susceptible to the weather, but the framing is, and that basically has been in place for about 4 years. 2018 is when they started the framing. So they've been abating the building. They did the abatement the first time, it was 2019. And then they are abating it currently as we speak right now. So it's been 2 times.
And then these memorandum of understanding that you were talking about, weren't they at this point, I know staff has been working extremely hard trying to bring them along, even in this short time period, as Councilwoman Garcia was mentioning, you know, but how many of those did they not sign after repeatedly being asked to sign and given date certain that they had to sign if they wanted to continue?
We basically have been going back and forth with the developer and the contractor to try and come up with a compromise that worked for everybody. So it isn't a matter of how many, it's a matter of how long. We've been in negotiation with them since September of last year on the MOU. That's how long it's taken to get to this point. We finally have gotten agreement on the MOU, but we need to have the other documents that go along with it that I suggested in my recommendation. Because it's not just the buildings that we're dealing with, it's also the site improvement work as well.
Right, and so the MOU, but my understanding and listening and reading and seeing all this back and forth is that you had requested, the city had requested that it be turned in, that's the last one, so we can move forward, and they were given a date. And then they, I think, were given an extension on that date. And that extension has passed again. And now we're talking about another extension to the September 4 or 8/31/21. Is that correct?
I'm going to allow either Bill Abbott, who's got his hand up, answer that question for you. Or Alan.
No, if I may, this is Bill Abbott, counsel to the department. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to participate. As Rob has pointed out, staff has worked, there's been a significant amount of senior staff time over nearly 11 months just to get 3 satisfactory agreements ready for the council's consideration. The developer and property owner have executed 2 of the 3. They still have to deliver, there still is a continuing dispute over the 3rd agreement, which is the amended subdivision improvement agreement. And the point I wanted to underscore in Rob's recommendation is that it's not that they have to deliver a set of signed documents by 8/31 close of business, but they have to deliver signed and fully funded city-approved form of agreements. They're continuing to, in my assessment, they're continuing to argue over points which I think have no validity. And we'll see where we end up by the 31st, but we've been repeatedly clear about the form of agreements to be executed.
Mayor Pro Tem,
And-
if I could add to Bill's comments, I wanted to just underscore the fact, part of what Rob had alluded to earlier in his presentation, despite all of staff's best efforts to reach agreement on these three separate agreements, it really wasn't until we proceeded with this declaration of public nuisance that we've seen real movement. We're making progress, as Mr. Abbott had described, but we're still not quite there yet. So what Rob's recommendations would allow us to do is to keep the pressure on while not pulling back on the process required for declaring the property a nuisance. So this again is a creative strategy to try to keep forward momentum while at the same time keeping all options on the table.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up, and thank you. I just want to say I'm very impressed with how much staff has worked on this, and this is just crazy. This is crazy how long this has taken. Thank you very much, everyone, and Rob especially. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, let's go out to the public.
Mayor, there may be the applicant, property owner or the contractor may be
One of them?
out there.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Lorenzo.
Hi. Okay, so I represent US Longton and Pacific Sunshine Development on this project. As of yesterday, we did get in the site improvement agreement, the amended site improvement agreement. So we have agreed to all of the terms that the city has put on us. So I believe that we are in compliance with that. I'd like to point out that the pictures were taken very out of context at a point in time where we were in between the protection of the materials. We've been protecting these materials with 6 mil plastic over the years through every single winter, all the rainy seasons. We've done our due diligence to take care of the materials, to try to salvage the buildings as best we could. We've done mold remediation per recommendations by our certified industrial hygienist, all recommended by the building department and the building official. So, you know, we've taken numerous steps to try to come in compliance with what is being requested of us. And as of recently, we have complied with all of the demands in all of the paperwork, the MOU, the SIA, and the funding agreement.
Okay, thank you, Lorenzo. Next caller.
Just keep reading ahead and just asking,
Oh.
do you have a chance to join our meeting?
Next caller. Go ahead. Tony.
Tony, go ahead.
This is Tony Vitale. I'm Chief Operating Officer of US Longton. I had expected that our counsel, Ken Gorman from Santa Cruz, would make the presentation. Fairly detailed presentation is set out in our joint letter signed by me and by the Chief Executive Officer of Pacific Sunshine, the owner developer of the project, dated August 21 and circulated to all the members of the city council And we had no intention of offending anyone by doing that. Communications directly to members of the city council are contemplated by the website. And it was done in an effort to expedite getting the information before the members. There is a detailed recitation